We last left off with reviewing every Zoog-era Disney movie, so if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out, although you don't have to understand the context of this video. In this video, we're going to be reviewing another 40 films, this time from the Bounce era and the Ribbon era. If you want to understand the context of that, then, go watch the first video. This was Disney Channel's most popular era of all time, so I'm assuming a lot of these movies people are going to really know about. So keep watching if you're interested. We have to do some clarifications first before we start, however. If I'm out of focus and I have to scrap this whole thing, I'm going to be so upset. Happy Halloween, everybody! Or at least that's when I'm recording this. I thought I might get one final use out of the Halloween set, so here we are. Also, there's a man shouting outside, and I'm very concerned. So if you hear a woo every once in a while, that's because somebody's behaving weirdly in the parking lot. I'm recording, however, because there is a bit of a complication at this point in the series. So we are about to enter the Bounce era, and I think there's a bit of a debate on where the actual demarcation line is. At least internally. I'm not sure if Disney Channel fans have debated about this in the past, but I'm a bit concerned that I might be doing the wrong call here, so I just want to clarify things just a little bit. The next film we're going to talk about is The Scream Team, which came out on October 4th, 2002. And whether or not the Bounce era started on September 30th or October 7th is where the debate is at. I've seen some sources say October 7th, which is the first Monday of October, and I've seen some places that say September 30th, which is the first Monday of the month of October, but of course is the final day of September. That depends on how you define the Bounce era starting, because yes, the Disney Channel new logo had aired on September 30th, along with the theme song, the 4-note mnemonic, written by Alex Lasarenko. If you've seen the Defunctland video, then you'd know. That video was a great resource for this video, of course. Even though my video really has nothing to do too much with the bumpers, it does provide a lot of info, and summarizes a lot of stuff that I read on articles before that video came out. Yes, that's how long I've been working on this video for. I'm not sure of the exact date that the Wand IDs first appeared on Disney Channel. It could be October 7th, which is why it's usually listed as the day that the Bounce era began. But I'm not sure, and it's very awkward that this movie happened to come out in between this sort of gray area of Zoog era and Bounce era. So I've made the official call to decide that this movie is the first movie of the Bounce era, for multiple reasons. The first reason is that, a bit selfishly, it's kind of nice to round out the Zoog era as a nice full 40 instead of an awkward 41. The other reason being that I do believe that the Bounce era does officially start on September 30th. If you haven't seen the Defunctland video, they specifically find footage of Disney Channel from September 30th, 2002, and on Playhouse Disney, they have the brand new logo. So to me, that's pretty concrete proof that that was the start of the Bounce era. Even if maybe it was more of a soft launch and the full relaunch didn't happen until the Monday afterwards on October 7th. I'm going to consider it the start, which means that I'm going to consider The Scream Team the first movie in the Bounce era. So, welcome to the Bounce era, everybody. I hope you're excited. So anyways, what is the Bounce era? Why am I making such a big deal about this change? I mean, they couldn't change that much with their identity, right? You're wrong. They've changed a lot about Disney Channel's identity between these two eras, and I feel like this is the biggest shift we're going to see throughout the video, because later on, while things are going to change, it's going to be more in a superficial way, and as the Disney Channel decays slowly and no longer becomes a powerhouse of pop culture, things are going to feel a little bit different when we get to the era switches. So be excited and be happy while we can right now that there's still exciting, fresh, new things happening on the channel. So on to the Bounce era.
Let's watch a Disney Channel movie. Let's watch a Disney Channel movie. We're gonna watch a Disney Channel movie. Let's watch a Disney Channel movie. Let's watch a Disney Channel movie.
It's still absolutely wild to me that a little under half of this list is from before the wand IDs, because that's the most iconic element of Disney Channel's branding to me personally. And all of the movies we've talked about before came out before that even existed. I used the Disney Channel page on Logopedia to understand what the key differences between these eras are, because as a younger person looking outside of history, it can be hard to consolidate these things. However, the shift between these two eras is extremely clear and obvious to see when it happens. For many kids, this is when the 1990s became the 2000s, and you can see why from just observing the way the wand IDs and other bumper interstitials looked compared to the Zoog stuff. I feel like I don't even really need to introduce the wand IDs because they're so ubiquitous, and a much larger channel in mine has already made an entire documentary about this era and how the Disney Channel theme was constructed by Alex Lazarenko. So you've probably already watched that if you're here. Also, because this is when the Disney Channel really started to grow in viewership, and we're getting millions of eyeballs on their channel at every given point during the day. But I realize that not everyone watched Disney Channel growing up since it was a cable channel, and according to my analytics, none of you were even born yet when the Bounce era started, including myself. So indulge in me as I explain what was going on with the Bounce era during this time. So the reason why it was called the Bounce era is because the new logo would bounce around the screen during the interstitials. The new logo was a fresher and hipper take on the mouse ears of Disney past, and always hugged the left side of the screen, with the words Disney Channel in the center. This logo cannot be flipped. I've learned that the hard way when attempting to make dozens of thumbnails with this little booger in the corner. This will create problems for the brand later, but we'll get there when we get there. The wand IDs are bumper interstitials that would play to remind the audience of what channel they were watching, both literally and metaphorically. By pairing the actor with what series they starred in and what channel they were representing, it sent a message to the viewer of exactly what kind of programming they were going to be viewing. On top of that, it was all extremely subliminal. I don't think many kids actively thought, wow, this channel is so cool and hip when watching the bumpers and interstitials, but it gave children the deep emotional feeling of validation in regard to their perception of quote-unquote cool. All at an age where their brains were gooey and malleable, ensuring that it would be everlasting and that dickheads like me would be talking about it 20 plus years in the future. So what have we learned about Disney Channel original movies now that I've watched 40 of them? Well, I've learned that the Disney Channel at this point has 4 main types of movies that they make: sports movie, weird sci-fi high school movie, animal movies, and torture. Some movies cross over into other categories and others stay comfortably in their niche. All of these, however, no matter their niche, are all coming-of-age movies. And I have a feeling that aspect is not going to change for the next, let me see here, 75 movies. Lord save me.
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Can you sit down?
This movie was a very fun watch. I found myself being more kind to the Halloween TV movies throughout time, and the Scream team is another example of this. Maybe it's just because I like Halloween. The Scream team follows 2 kids after the death of their grandfather, wow, I'm getting deja vu, who had a strained relationship with their father. He grew up in a small town and later became a doctor, moving to the big city to raise his kids and only visiting rarely. They're cleaning out his house and picking up his things when they learn about the mysterious tale of the ghost of Zachariah, who was an old, ancient guy who got killed for some reason. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, I'm sorry guys. This ghost supposedly now haunts the small town. They all don't believe that ghosts are real until the ghost of their grandfather appears in the house and is trying to send them a message. While following the specter after it leaves the house, they find the Soul Patrol, which is a whole underground group of ghosts who work on helping souls cross over into the afterlife. We meet a whole cast of creepy ghost characters, and they all have stories based on what outfits they're wearing. That's what I like the most. They're mainly just comic relief, but their costuming is what gives you more insight into their characters. Like we have Jumper, who is a dead skydiver, and Coffin Ed, who is a Revolutionary War soldier. And the head honcho, Mariah, who just really wants to work off her debts and go into the afterlife, is in a bridal gown, so we have to assume she's a dead bride. For some reason, their grandfather's soul isn't passing over, so they have to figure out why, all while having to deal with Zachariah trying to steal souls to gain power to take over the town. Zachariah actually does take over the town because he's able to get a bunch of souls, but they defeat him, and then we finally learn why the grandfather's spirit was still lingering. It's because he wanted to mend his relationship with his son, and as the ghost, they just talk for a few hours, off screen of course, but they just like reach closure with each other and have a really nice bonding moment. I may or may not have cried, I don't want to talk about it, guys. And over time, as the father is in the small town, he re-remembers his roots and learns to connect more with his kids. They decide to move into their grandfather's old house and live in the small town again, and he opens up a medical practitioner in the town. Overall, I think the Scream Team is a great Halloween movie. If you're looking for a spooky Halloween movie to watch around the season, I would highly recommend this thing. I think the fact that it deals with ghosts and doesn't try to avoid the whole grief thing really works for me. And I think the whole concept of mending old past wounds and being able to do so with a ghost can probably be comforting for a lot of people. I actually understand this movie and I get it. I could see what they were trying to do and they executed it properly. And that's all I can ask for at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh, it's so strong!
You Wish was weird, man. You Wish is about 16-year-old Alex who is constantly being annoyed by his younger brother Stevie, who plays pranks on him. All Alex wants to do is be a cool and awesome football player, but his brother causing him embarrassment in front of the football guys means that he's more likely not to get picked. Alex and his friends are really into coin collecting, and when Stevie accepts a magical coin, he decides to give it to his brother. What they don't realize is that if you wish on this coin, your wish will come true, and he offhandedly wishes that he never had a little brother, and it comes true. He wakes up the next morning to see that his life is completely different, and that his quote-unquote brother is now a famous child actor who was on a TV show called Where's Stevie? I gotta say, that's a pretty funny joke. He's now the most popular kid in school, and he's now dating the most popular girl in school, but over time he starts to realize that he liked his life before, and that he doesn't understand why he didn't appreciate things. So now he must go through the effort of trying to revert his wish back to normal, and a bunch of hijinks ensue. Honestly, the most notable thing about this movie is that during the third act break, they play 1,000 Miles, which was a needle drop that I was not expecting. You very rarely hear pop songs in these DComs. They are the most copyright-free, royalty-free music you could ever find, so I don't know how this thing slipped in. He's of course able to revert back to the normal timeline, and he learns to appreciate what he has, blah blah blah. You Wish was a perfectly fine watch. I really have nothing wrong with it, but I also don't have many opinions on it. It's not the worst DCOM I've ever seen, but it's also not the best. It is the definition of middle of the ranking. Let's move on swiftly.
Dude is not a dude.
Speaking of right in the middle, we have the movie Right on Track. Right on Track is apparently based on a true story about two sisters who became really popular in junior drag racing. Both Courtney and Erica Enders were raised in the drag racing world, with their father being a former drag racer who quit the game to start a family. They both have to balance their racing life with their everyday life, which can become very complicated because it's a very demanding sport. We mainly follow Erica, played by Beverly Mitchell, and how she has a guy who really likes her, but she's constantly at racing meets, and how she's struggling to pass all of her classes because she's constantly practicing for her racing meets. And her younger sister, Courtney, played by Brie Larson, starts to actually rise in the ranks and become just as good as her, when a big part of Erica's whole identity is that she is the best. One thing that I found interesting was a plotline where Erica gets asked on a date by one of her friends and also somebody who's on her drag racing crew, and they go on a date and they have a fun time together, but at the end they just decide that they aren't really romantically fit for each other, and it's honestly quite sweet. They can just stay friends for the rest of the movie. That plotline felt like such an afterthought. It's almost like maybe this was a real life story that Erica, the real life person, insisted on putting in the movie if they had any involvement with its creation, because it's not something that's like a central theme of the film, so it's just kind of there. This whole movie just stinks of girl boss feminism, which I realize in the grand scheme of things isn't all that bad because, you know, we're in the backlash to the backlash kind of moment, even though a lot of people can still find girl boss feminism empowering. So the whole setup of this movie is watch girls drag race, see you two girls can drag race, and I mean, it's fine. Again, another example of a completely middle-of-the-road movie. If you know somebody who is really into drag racing, maybe show it to them. But I only have somewhat of an interest in the sport, and like I said earlier, that really sells me on how much I'm going to enjoy the movie. So it's just okay. Going in the middle of the ranking, probably. So on May 2nd, 2003, the Lizzie McGuire movie premiered in theaters. Because it is a theatrically released film, that means it is not considered a DCOM, which means I will not be reviewing it in this video.
Have you ever seen a grown man get so mad over a chocolate chip cookie?
So I've never seen Even Stevens, the TV show, so I'm assuming there's some elements of the Even Stevens movie that I'm missing because I don't have the greater context. Although in general, I do think that this movie does help educate me and sell me on the dynamic of the show. I wasn't confused about any character relationships or how the story ended up going at the end of the day. The Even Stevens movie follows the Stevens family as they go out on summer vacation right before their oldest son leaves for college. Goody Two-Shoes Wren is heartbroken after her boyfriend breaks up with her, and Louie wants to do nothing. And Wren accepted to babysit Beans, who is the only character I knew without watching the show, for the entire summer while his parents are away. The family is then offered an all-inclusive trip to a remote island under the guise that they're testing out possibly including packages in the future. What they don't know is that they're actually on a reality TV show called Family Fakeout. So all of the mishaps and problems they face on the island are actually intentionally set up by the reality TV's producers to create interesting television. This is a real twist that happens only in the middle of the movie, and I will say I was surprised and not expecting it. Because with wacky sitcoms like this, where it just follows a family of weird people, I really just assumed that all of the crazy bad things that were happening to the family were actually just happening in real life. But no, it was a setup and was overdramatic for a reason. Eventually, the Stevens find out that they're being tricked, and they decide to trick the TV show producers back. They're only able to find out because of Louie's friends feeling guilty about ratting them out and then going onto the island to tell them the truth. Louie and Wren play the ultimate prank by pretending that Wren kills her brother, but it was all a setup for a separate reality TV show. It's TV show Inception. The Stevens family worked with another reality TV show named Gotcha to then prank the producers of Family Fakeout. Even though tensions were high because the producers were making that so, they were able to reconcile and work together as a family. I can see that this movie is raising the stakes of the original show, and so because of that, I can appreciate its destination setting. I quickly found out that Beans would be my favorite character if I ever were to go back and rewatch Even Stevens, and overall, I thought this was a perfectly fine movie. If you're a weirdo like me and you've decided to also do this and watch every Disney Channel original movie, then you'll be very pleasantly surprised to watch it. But if you're not a freak, like I am, then I would only recommend you watch the Even Stevens movie if you've watched the TV show. I don't really see a point in watching the movie outside of those two settings.
Hey, Dad? You want to have a catch?
Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off, let's go! I've really been hyping up myself to watch this movie so far just because for some reason I've told myself that it's gonna be really good, and you know what? I wasn't disappointed. Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off follows Eddie, a kid who is the best baseball player on his Little League team. Although over time, he starts to grow an interest and fascination with cooking. Of course, literally every person he's surrounded by, all of his friends and his brothers, immediately make fun of him for showing some interest in cooking. So when it's time for elective signups, he tricks all of his friends into signing up for home ec with him. There's also Bridget, who is a New Zealander, I guess, who is really obsessed with cooking and baking, who everyone makes fun of because of her hyper-obsession. Edit, I just realized that this movie was filmed in New Zealand, so there are actually a lot of New Zealand actors in this movie, and she was just the one who couldn't hide her accent the best. Anyways, just thought I would mention. The home ec teacher introduces the $1 Million Cook-Off competition, which Eddie wants to join, but he must do secretly so his friends don't figure out. There's a food fight, he makes a purple sauce, it wins, he gets in the competition, and now he must decide whether he wants to attend the final baseball game or the $1 Million Cook-Off competition. This is High School Musical before High School Musical existed. Clearly Disney Channel finds that there is like a nerve that they need to scratch at when it comes to kids having multiple interests. High School Musical is, of course, the most popular, and I think the one to tackle it the best. Maybe that's just because I like musicals, so that's why I feel that way. But Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off doesn't really succeed as much as next movies in the list are going to. But I shouldn't judge it for that. Overall, it's a very fun movie, and in the end, I do like that he ends up attending both events, the baseball game and the cook-off, but he ends up losing the cook-off because he only really started cooking a few months ago, versus Bridget, who is a ride or die, does end up winning. And the baseball team ends up winning without him. So even though he's sad for a little bit, he gets a pep talk from his dad, and he realizes that he can do anything he dreams of now that he knows what his passions are, and he feels like he's not being held back by the people around him who judge him. I wish that Bridget and Eddie would have had more scenes together, and they would have become better friends instead of just being like light acquaintances. And his baseball buddies do eventually come around to him cooking, but it would have been nice if that happened a little sooner in my opinion. I felt like that part was dragged out a little bit. But overall, I loved Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. I would highly recommend you watch this movie, especially if you want to do a drunk watch with your friends. That's what I ended up doing. We made some pina coladas and had a good time watching Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off, and I'd recommend you do the same. It's gonna go probably middle to high end of the ranking so far.
Haven't you heard? I'm the crazy bitch around here. Have fun in reform school.
Okay guys, we're at one of the first big ones of the Bounce era, and that is the Cheetah Girls. Believe it or not, I've never actually seen any of the Cheetah Girls movies. I somehow just perfectly avoided all of them, which is really weird because they seem like they'd be up my alley. I know the Cheetah Girls is based off of a book, but when it comes to the movie, the DCOM itself, I really feel like the Disney Channel just looked at Bratz and went, hey, let's just make that but a movie. The Cheetah Girls are Galleria, Chanel, Aqua, and Dorinda. They all come from different backgrounds and all have a passion for singing and want to make it as the next big girl group. They have to balance their passion and intensity for being in this girl group with their everyday lives as teenage girls. Galleria begged her parents to get a new dog and now she barely pays attention to it. Chanel has to deal with the fact that her mother is constantly gone now that she's dating a new guy who lives in Paris. Aqua is smart and is from Texas, and is afraid of public transit. She doesn't really have much conflict in this movie besides getting over using the subway. And Dorinda is poor, unlike the rest of her friends, and has to work as a janitor at a community center. She also struggles with her identity because she is adopted. I remember people bringing up this plotline of the movie recently and being like, what the fuck was this? Because when Chanel finds out that Dorinda, the only white member of the Cheetah Girls, was actually adopted by a black woman, she assumes that she's mixed and is like, I knew you were one of us, girl! And that's a weird way to respond to that. But then Dorinda has to break the news to her that she doesn't know what her ethnicity is, and they have to reassure to her that it doesn't matter what she is because they love her for her. Their big goal in this movie is to win their talent show. And after they audition, one of the famous alumni record producers ends up seeing it and wants to sign them to his record label. Although he wants to change everything about their identity and make them some kiddie group. They have a falling out because they don't know what to decide. They have a third act breakup, but all come together when Galleria's dog gets stuck in like a manhole and has to be saved. They shut down traffic in all of Manhattan to save this poor dog. It's at that moment that they realize that they truly care about each other and that they shouldn't break up. So they reunite and are eventually able to perform at their school's talent show, I think in the middle of the street, but they still end up winning. This is a very fun and cheerful kids movie, and plus the songs aren't as bad as I was initially thinking they were going to be. No offense to the Cheetah Girls, I'd never listened to any of their music, but I was kind of expecting the worst. But nothing was too offensive or noticeably bad, so good job there. Again, you know me, I love a good ensemble cast, and I think each character has a fun little moment and their dynamic is interesting. I didn't like how much they fought. Part of me really felt like they weren't actually friends, and I actually did believe that like maybe the Cheetah Girls wouldn't work. But the fact that they never seemed to be on the same page for the entirety of the movie was a bit concerning to me. I would recommend you watch this movie, but you've probably already seen it. This was the first ever musical DCOM, and we could see with the success of this movie what they were going to do in the future. Say it with me now, why do we need another basketball movie? and a religious basketball movie to boot. Very, very interesting. Full Court Miracle is, as Wikipedia describes, an American Hanukkah sports drama film. It follows Alex Schlotsky, who attends a Hebrew academy in Philadelphia. He's like really into basketball, but no one really takes his interest seriously because he's Jewish. The school's basketball team is famously known for being really bad at basketball, and all Alex wants to do is improve the team. They were inspired by the tale of Judah Maccabee that they learned in class to find someone to coach them into becoming a good basketball team. They then see a guy just at the park being really good at basketball, and his name is Lamont Carr. He was a college basketball star who got a knee injury right when he was about to go to the NBA, and now he's essentially homeless, living in his van. It's because he's hoping to get signed to another team, and so his wife and kids are back at home in another state, waiting for him to get the job. Schlotz is able to convince Lamont to start training them because they all gather up a bunch of their lunch money to pay him. And over time, he's eventually hired as the official basketball coach for the school. Although there's a teacher there who is determined to prove that he is not supposed to be there. For whatever reason, I wonder what it is. So a lot of the movie is back and forth between them learning about basketball and then having to hide the fact that Lamont is homeless. The team actually does improve and they actually make it to the finals. But Lamont ends up leaving because he has an opportunity to audition for an NBA team. And during the final game, there's a massive storm that cuts off the electricity for the school's gymnasium. Since this whole movie is taking place during Hanukkah, by the way, I forgot to mention that, the generator that they're using to continue the game that runs on gas mysteriously keeps running even after all of the gas has boiled out, mirroring the story of Hanukkah about the oil lasting for 7 days. Of course, Schlotz and his basketball team end up winning, and Lamont decides that he actually wants to be a basketball coach instead of trying for the NBA again, realizing that he really just needed to be with his family at the end of the day, and Schlotz's mother is actually able to get his wife and kids down for the final game so they can, talk about that. I'm not a big fan of religious DCOMs, I've already mentioned it before, and most of the time the religion that the DCOMs handle is Christianity, so it was at least new and interesting to see a Jewish DCOM. Alex at least has interesting motivations. He wants to become a full-time basketball player, but his mom really wants him to become a doctor, so she essentially ignores all of his dreams and wishes about basketball, and it really pushes him further away from her. Overall, it was a very fun movie, so maybe if you have the time to watch another basketball movie, then check this one out.
Take care now, Frankenstein, take care. Shut off the light.
Pixel Perfect is weird, man. Even though I have not started a script at all for it, I think I might make a full video on Pixel Perfect. Who knows? We'll see. Pixel Perfect follows Roscoe, who wants to help out his friend Sam and their band, the Zettabytes. They're told that they need a new lead singer and that Sam just isn't cutting the mustard. And Roscoe just happens to be really talented at computerized holographic equipment because that's the industry that his father is in. So he creates a fully sentient hologram named Loretta to be their lead singer. She's a full-on autonomous humanoid, and I don't even want to think about the implications of this technology being available in 2004. With Loretta as their lead singer, they wow all of their audiences, and people are very impressed by their lead singer's literal perfectionism. Sam immediately becomes jealous of Loretta and bitter at the fact that Roscoe seems to like Loretta more than her, which she has had a crush on Roscoe since the very beginning of their friendship. When Roscoe's father finds out, he immediately wants to delete it because, he's literally the modern Prometheus. And eventually, obviously, Loretta is outed as a hologram, but instead of being booed and shunned, she is embraced, and people are very, very interested in the novelty of a holographic lead singer. So the Zettabytes are immediately signed to a record deal, and they start recording an album, although they all feel very weirded out by the fact that they're essentially pushed aside and Loretta is given front and center attention. Loretta starts to feel weird and alienated by her society, because she is not truly human, and because she's a hologram, that means she can't go outside and experience sunlight because she would just dissipate. It's very Frankenstein's monster, indeed. And then after the record label signs the Zettabytes, they now admit that they have all the rights to Loretta and all of her being, and they decide that they want to make a bunch of holographic pop stars. Both Roscoe and his father disagree with this, but they can't do anything because they already signed a contract. After this, Roscoe gets in a huge fight with Loretta, and she escapes into the internet. So we get a lot of really fun green screen CGI animations of what the internet looks like on the inside. While Loretta is gone, Sam decides that she's going to try and pretend to be Loretta, but then she ends up getting horribly injured and is in the hospital in a coma? The movie takes a very melodramatic twist at the end, which is really weird, and Loretta, in true Tangled fashion, revives Sam and enters her mind. So for a little bit there, Sam is possessed by Loretta, and she gets to experience rain and outside for the first time while in Sam's body, but then, evacuates it so Sam can start being herself again. I think this movie is a psychological horror and we just don't realize it yet. And Loretta is seen as a sort of guardian angel figure who is transcended into godhood and watches over us all. I really liked Pixel Perfect. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it so much. Probably gonna go more higher up in the ranking than I ended up thinking it was going to.
Can you walk any softer? Oh, please, Jenna can't hear us. She's blind. You know what I mean.
Here we are with another movie about a kid with disabilities, but this time, he's the main character. Yay! The movie is called Going to the Mat, by the way. I forgot to say it in the audio, and I try to remember to say it in the audio just in case you're doing the dishes or playing Subway Surfers or whatever while listening to this video. So there you go. It's called Going to the Mat. Jason Jace Newfield is a blind drummer whose family moved from New York to Utah. On Jace's first day, he's incredibly rude and very touchy to everyone around him and is bullied by some kids on the wrestling team, so Jace immediately decides that he must also join the wrestling team to prove himself. One of the big main plot lines of this movie is the fact that Jace is a little bit of an asshole. He's kind of mean to everybody he talks to, which is clearly a coping mechanism. He's bitter about the fact that he's left a culture hub of the country and gone to Salt Lake City, which is seen as a boring Mormon town. And he feels the need to protect himself and put a guard up through this intense, thick layer of irony. So Jace has to learn to wrestle while all of his teammates secretly hate him because they think that he's going to bring their numbers down by being a person with a disability. But eventually he proves himself as a really good wrestler, and eventually everyone on his team comes around to him. Also, he ends up falling for the girl who was assigned to be his reader, and they go on a little date, and they're a really cute relationship. At the end of the season, the wrestling team makes it to the state championship, and he ends up winning even after being badly injured. At the very end, there's a funny joke where there's a journalist who wants to do a story on Jace and how he battles being a blind wrestler, and literally everyone around him's like, "Did you know Jace was blind?" It's really funny. It's a good little scene. Basically saying that they see him as much more than just what his disability is, and see him as a fully fleshed out person and don't want to typecast him as the blind wrestler like the journalist does. This is another Andrew Lawrence film. He really was in so many DCOMs, it's pretty impressive. I'll be completely honest with you, I had no idea that the character was blind for like the first 15 minutes of the movie. It's kind of embarrassing to say that at the end of the day, but because I know who Andrew Lawrence is, I was like, well, he's not blind. So I just genuinely couldn't tell that he was playing a blind character. Going to the Mat is a perfectly fine movie. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's another boring sports movie. What are you gonna do? Let's move on.
Try here. Stop.
Oh my goodness, I can finally put the Xenon trilogy behind me. I still feel really bad that I don't like the Xenon movies because I know a lot of people really love them. And I would love to know what people think about Xenon Z3 because so far it's my favorite. Z3 follows Xenon as she is now 18 years old and competing to win the Galactic Teen Supreme Contest, all of which is being held on the moon. Margie is back, and we also get a cameo from Nebula, the original Nebula, played by Raven-Symoné. She's only in like 5 seconds of the movie, and she's green screened in, but it was still nice to see her. While Xenon competes, she is strangely winning, even though she has all of these harder obstacles faced against her that the runner of the contest is intentionally putting in. The guy who's running the contest wants to colonize the moon, and there are plenty of protesters against that. One of them is named Sage, and yes, he is the new love interest for this movie. Let's just forget about the cute alien boy, as in boy who is into aliens, not as in he is an alien boy. Xenon eventually comes around to agreeing with Sage when originally she just doesn't think it's a big deal, and so because of that, that's why the contest runner is sabotaging her performance so she doesn't win. But she still wins anyways. That's because the moon goddess is intentionally helping her out so she can get her attention to let people know that she does not want the moon colonized. Because they already have a giant space mall on the moon goddess says that she's gonna literally kill everybody on the moon if they don't jet out of there within the next day. So now Margie and Xenon, along with all the other contestants, have to help evacuate everybody off of the moon so, they don't die. Also, Protozoa is back, but he has been recasted in one of the worst recastings I've ever seen. No offense to this actor, he just literally looks nothing like the other guy. Like, this is a crazy kind of recasting. Protozoa is upset because he is now seen as yesterday's news, as a new girl group has officially taken over as the biggest artist in the galaxy. But he's able to save the day when he brings his massive space touring bus, and it can fit everybody who's on the moon on it, and they all escape to Earth for safety. He then does a collab with the new girl group in a really good song that I highly recommend you listen to. It was catchy as hell, and all is well. One thing I will commend the Xenon series for doing is that each movie feels like its own contained story, so while from the director's standpoint it's like, well, we can just make these into infinity. But it also shows that, these are just chapters of Xenon's life. This isn't like an overarching 3-movie story. It's just 3 little mini stories. And we can assume that many more hijinks and shenanigans will happen in her life in other movies that just never got made. Overall, I really enjoyed Xenon Z3. It's my favorite one so far because it was the most competent, and Xenon as a character doesn't piss me off anymore. I still never want to revisit the Xenon trilogy again, and I probably never will. So there you go.
Swag.
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 Oh, wow!
Stuck in the Suburbs was very interesting and very cute. Stuck in the Suburbs follows Brittany and her newfound friendship with Natasha. Brittany is boring, basic, average, and Natasha is extremely interesting and exotic and fascinating. Natasha claims that she's from New York and that she lived with her father in Europe. And Brittany is amazed by this because she's kind of sick of her boring suburb lifestyle. Even though she's obsessed with teen sensation Jordan Cahill, she pretends that she's above it all when she becomes friends with Natasha. Jordan's filming a music video in their town, and during a mix-up, she ends up swapping phones with him. She uses his phone to make his life better because he's constantly being controlled by his restrictive record label. All while this adds a newfound source of interest and intrigue for Brittany and Natasha's boring lives. Brittany and Natasha get in a fight because they realize that they've both lied about each other. Brittany pretended to be cooler than she actually was, and actually so did Natasha. Her father never took her to Europe or to New York. And she's not new at school, she had always been there, but she just never had any friends and never interacted with anybody. Eventually, Brittany feels bad about, using Jordan's phone to her advantage, and she decides to finally come clean and swap phones again. But during all of this, there's an intense chase scene, and eventually she's able to become friends with him. Throughout the movie, Brittany's mother has been really wanting to save this old house from being demolished and turned into a gas station or whatever, and she can't get anyone to care. But once she gets Jordan to show up, everyone else shows up, and they really decide to save the house. It's kind of like a B plot that becomes a really important plot at the end, and I think it's really well executed because Brittany is really just seen as someone who doesn't really care about her parents' boring activities, but learns to find a new appreciation for them as people. Jordan is able to leave his restricted record label and make the music he really wants to make, boring acoustic ballads instead of interesting boyfriend pop music. It's the same plot. All of these movies do the exact same plot, where it's like, they pretend they're Justin Bieber or Lady Gaga, but they're actually an acoustic singer-songwriter. Like, get over yourself. Overall, I really liked Stuck in the Suburbs. Brenda Song is just such a great actress, and I loved her in this movie. I would recommend you watch this movie, and I want to watch it again someday soon, because it was just really silly. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie.
Are you eyeballing me with those baby blues? Are you?
Sir, no, sir!
Are you in love with me, Swafford?
Sir, no, sir!
Oh.
Tiger Cruise rightfully pissed me off, and in a way I didn't even think was possible for a DCOM. This movie follows Maddie Dolan, a girl who decides to go on the Tiger Cruise, which is a vacation where family members from Navy officers get to visit them on their ship for a few days. Maddie has decided to go on the cruise for a specific reason, to ask her father to unenlist from the Navy so he can actually be there for her in her life, since they're constantly moving around and he doesn't actually know much about their children and what they're going through. There's also a few other central characters we follow, including Anthony, a troublemaker from New York whose sailor older brother hoped the trip would straighten him out, Tina, a military-obsessed kid who looks up to her aviator sister and is military propaganda pilled, Joey, a younger kid whose mother is a sailor and is just there to eat ice cream, and Chuck, a retired Marine who looks down on his son for being a military chef where he's mainly there to make fat jokes and to be racist. Hijinks on the boat ensue, and the four kids try to have fun while their family members attempt to connect with them, with things being strained all around. Oh, by the way, did I mention that this story takes place on the second weekend of September 2001? Yeah, goddamn motherfucking 9/11 happens. The movie goes from being slightly serious but still lighthearted into being a full-blown melodrama, and it's honestly kind of a lot. So, I was born a year after 9/11, so of course I'll never know what it was like to witness the attacks, and I know that the event is still fresh in a lot of people's minds, so I don't want to offend anybody with my somewhat cavalier nature towards the event. Plus, I really don't want to get into the politics of it all, although I hope we're all aware of how this event sparked plenty of racism and death for many that was, at the end of the day, senseless and unnecessary. I think this movie uses the event of 9/11 to drum up military propaganda and nationalism in the American youth, and personally I think that's a very manipulative goal and a reason to tell a story about 9/11 only 3 years after it had happened. This film had to have permission from the US military to use their equipment and let all the actors wear their uniforms, so of course they wouldn't approve of a script that had a negative view of the military because they've denied access to film productions in the past. But what's worse than all of that, in my opinion, is the ending. After seeing everything her father has to do on the ship and how important he is to the military, Maddie decides to convince him to keep his job. I'm not sure how realistic this is to a young teenager who barely sees her dad at all, when all she wanted was for him to be present in her life, but whatever. This movie is bad, and it's military propaganda, but what's worse, especially for the people who created it, it's also just bad military propaganda. This is going on the bottom, past Xenon, past everything else, because I really don't have tolerance for this type of film, or any of Disney Channel's stance on nationalism from this era altogether. Sorry y'all, this movie is fucking shit. Woo, let's talk about Halloweentown High! In my opinion, the third and final movie you should watch in the Halloweentown series, Halloweentown High follows Marnie again, as she is in high school now. Because the portal has been opened year-round between Halloweentown and the mortal world, she decides to host a monster exchange program, bringing a bunch of people from Halloweentown into the mortal world to exist and learn about mortal culture. This was an angle and element of the story that I really liked and was really interested in seeing how they would expand upon it, and I think they pretty much shot and stuck the landing with this one. We learn about the Knights of the Iron Dagger, who are known as humans who would attack monsters and pillage them. Marnie has to remind the Halloweentown folk that it's been many, many years since knights existed and that it's just a folktale story to keep people afraid of mortals. However, strange knight and iron dagger and imagery ends up showing up around campus, and we learn that somebody behind the scenes is pulling the strings to make sure that the Halloweentown monster kids don't stay in the mortal world. We learned that it's somebody from the Halloweentown Council, who Marnie had to get permission from originally to allow for the exchange program to happen. This guy has a grudge against humans, and actually worked with the human to try and reinvigorate the Knights of the Iron Dagger to get the monsters to go away. And it happens to be Aggie's love interest. No! She had just started working as a teacher at the school, and they're constantly having to move her around to different curriculums because she is not qualified to be a teacher at all. One thing I also really enjoyed was seeing Marnie's mom actually be a witch and a magic user and have fun with it. She literally has lines like, "Why did I ever give up magic?" And I like that and I appreciate it. As she starts to grow a bond with her mother again and realize that her daughter is really into the whole witch thing, she starts to rediscover that part of herself that she had shunned away all those years ago, and it's really interesting to watch. Marnie also gets a proper love interest, and he's not evil this time. Good for you, girl. She ends up revealing to him that she's a witch, and eventually they end up outing the fact that monsters exist to the real world. At first, everyone's scared and terrified of them because the evil villain guy has made sure that they would all attack the Halloween party that was happening that night. But they're able to convince everybody that they're actually all good and that they're more similar than they are different, and the movie ends happily. Now, I think the trilogy should have ended here for multiple reasons. The main one being that to grapple with the reality of Halloweentown and the mortal world combining and connecting, it's just too messy. There's too many politics and issues you'd have to deal with that. Which I think is wrong. I like the fact that the movie ends right as soon as things are gonna get a little bit too complicated, and we just end on the note of we can all be friends despite our differences. It's a great end to the trilogy, and I think it really works as a final film. Overall, I think this is a great movie. I actually never saw this one as a kid, can you believe that? I watched 1, 2, and 4. That's absolutely wild. Again, I recommend you watch the whole trilogy, and this is gonna go pretty high in the ranking so far. I quite liked it. Just as a warning, I put off doing voiceover work for a very long time, up until the point where it is now 2 in the morning and I just got back from doing a Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Nosferatu movie double feature. So I'm going to try my best to not sound completely out of it. I'm also in my kitchen right now because I'm trying not to disturb my father who is asleep, so the audio might sound a little bit different. I really hope no one minds.
I'm gonna nail you.
So I have very vague memories of the movie Now You See It. As a little one, I distinctly remember watching the opening scene and then turning off the TV to go do something else. Not because the opening scene was so, not up my alley or anything, but probably because I had other endeavors. Now You See It follows Allison Milchaka of Ally and AJ fame. As she plays a character, I'm pretty sure her name is also Allison in the movie, as she signs up to be a teenage producer on a teenage television reality show about magic. It's kind of multiple gimmicks all built up in one. It is a talent scout for magicians, teenage magicians, and the entire thing is being filmed, produced, and run by teenagers, with adult supervision, of course. So we follow Allison as this teenage producer as she tries and finds some talent scout to be entered into the magician competition. And then we get to slowly see all of these teen magicians work on, creating the most magical illusions for television and then winning at the very end. She happens to find Danny Sinclair, who for some reason can do very, very magical tricks, yet he can't explain how he did it. He's able to get by through the whole "a magician never tells his secrets" thing, but eventually people really start questioning, how did he do the tricks that he's doing? We then learn that Danny is actually magic. Like actually magic. Magic exists in this world, and the TV show host is also a magician and used the show as a ploy to find his new apprentice. But he's actually evil. He's trying to absorb the young kid's power to then become more powerful or whatever. So most of the movie is watching this sort of teen producer reality TV show, magic show, and watching Danny outshow all of his peers, yet not be able to explain why and be very elusive and, emo and edgy and stuff. A part of me thinks that maybe a beginning element of this script was having adult characters, but at a certain point when it became a DCOM, or when they decided that they couldn't have adult main characters in a DCOM anymore, they changed it to be these are teen producers and reality TV show hosts. It kind of muddles things a bit and makes it more unique. I don't know, it just kind of seems like they're juggling a lot of things. I'm not going to say it's an outright bad thing, however, because I did quite enjoy this movie. It's definitely not going up there as one of my favorites, but I had a pretty good time watching it throughout. The frame device of this film is Allison talking to a camera, describing what happened to Danny, saying that he's dead, but she knows that he's not dead. It's just a bait and switch for the ending, and it's a cute little narrative device throughout the film, so I didn't mind it. But overall, I think Now You See It is a very interesting film in DCOM history. Some, including me a few months ago, might have said it was a bit boring, but, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say it was a fun watch. As a grown-up, I don't know if I'd recommend you watch it or anything, but I'm not going to poo on it like I've been doing with a lot of these earlier DCOMs. I'm going to give it the good old college thumbs up.
1,
This is my own private domicile and I will not be harassed. Bitch!
Buffalo Dreams is another movie that kind of makes me confused as to why it exists. We're definitely in one of the biggest transition periods that Disney Channel is ever going to make in the case of DCOMs. This is really the first time that their old style of Zoog Disney movies are gonna become obsolete. This is one of the last of a dying breed in this whole DCOM era. So because of that, I'm gonna be a lot more sprightly and spiritly about this movie, also for a few other reasons. Buffalo Dreams follows Josh Townsend as his family moves to New Mexico. He apparently moves into a very remote part of New Mexico. Not all of New Mexico looks like this, by the way, guys. Just want you to know. A lot of it just looks like most of America. His family moves, I'm pretty sure, into the Navajo reservation in New Mexico, and he gets involved with a group of teens who are attempting to preserve the buffalo as well as traditions of the Navajo. The main kid who's a part of this club really wants to leave the nation, and he wants to, try and do something on his own outside of his culture. And it's mainly just about this kid learning about traditions and learning to enjoy his new environment. His father's a scientist who works at one of the big astrology labs that's in the area. There are a bunch of bicycle riding kids who love to ride their bikes in areas they're not supposed to be, like where the buffalo live. And Josh has to teeter between being friends with these kids who don't respect the land at all, and the other group of kids who care a lot about the traditional Navajo way of life and preserving the land that they live on. At one point, Josh is taken to this beautiful, water reserve, and he eventually decides to take the biker kids there because he wants to prove that he's a cool kid, and they end up graffitiing the whole entire place. They treat it like shit. And so to get all the biker kids to back off, he decides to do a race. Yes, this is a sports movie after all. Josh almost dies, but then he wins the race, and everyone's happy at the end, except for the kids who lost. I don't know, this is one of those movies where there's not really a plot, you just kind of watch a vignette of moments happening in this kid's life. And I guess for that, I'm not too mad at it. I think it's a perfectly fine movie if you're kind of into modern westerns. Funny enough, apparently this movie was shot in Utah because this was before New Mexico became a big filming hub. Now, majority of the time, a lot of Disney Channel and Nickelodeon TV shows and movies are filmed in New Mexico. But back when they were actually making movies that took place in New Mexico, they were filmed in other states. But overall, I don't think this movie was all that bad. It's very languid, it's very tranquil. I know I criticized movies for being tranquil in the past, and I kind of want to do the same with this movie, but you know what? I'm going to embrace the simplicity of this film, and I'm going to retroactively do the case for Rip Curls as well, because y'all ripped into me about Rip Curls, and fair enough. So I tip my hat to Buffalo Dreams, but I'm not going to think about it anymore in the future.
Do I look British? Do I look like a British person? Out of the way, bitches. Wade Freeman, all-star quarterback. Represent!
So I haven't actually seen much of the Kim Possible TV series, so being able to watch Kim Possible movie So the Drama was a very interesting experience for me. I'm pretty sure this is the first animated DCOM we have on the list today. I didn't bother to check in the past, and my brain is goo right now, so I can't confirm that for you. This movie follows Kim Possible as she tries to stop Dr. Draken once again from trying to take over the world. But this time she specifically has to deal with finding a date to the dance and dealing with mean girls at her school, as well as the fact that she may or may not like Ron Stoppable, her sidekick. Dr. Draken learns that Kim Possible's one true weakness is being a teenage girl, so he invents a whole guy to go and pretend to date her, so she would be conflicted on whether she should go to the prom with this guy or stop the world from being taken over. Also, Nacho Libre is under current distress with new management, and we learn that this is all part of Dr. Draken's world domination plan. He gives out these little toys in the kids' menus, and these toys are actually robots that are sent to, take over cities. So the two have to work together to stop the villain. Never once did I feel like Kim and Ron couldn't save the day at the very end of the movie. I was pretty confident that they were going to win, and obviously, for all of these DCOMs, that's the case. I know everyone's going to get a happy ending, but especially throughout this whole movie, I never once felt like, oh no, how are they going to get out of this one? And I think that that's a good thing at the end of the day. Again, I'm not that familiar with Kim Possible. I've only seen a few episodes. It wasn't really a show I grew up with. But I think that complete dominance and confidence is what makes the show so memorable and likable for a lot of people. Plus, I never actually thought of the fact that Ron and Kim could actually be a couple, so seeing them kiss at the end and actually officially become a couple was actually really nice. I'm really rooting for them. Apparently this was supposed to be the series finale, but then they made another season, and I think this would work great as a series finale. But it does leave enough open for it to, lead into another season, so I think they played both sides pretty well. Overall, I really enjoyed Kim Possible movie, So the Drama. I love how 2000s it is, and its dialogue and in its understanding of life, while not being offensive in any way. Like when people say something is of its time, it's usually in a negative sense, but in this sense, it's really good. So shout out to the Kim Possible movie. I recommend you watch it, even if you've never seen the show like I have, because it just works as a standalone piece of media. But if you're really invested in the characters in the TV show, I bet it works really, really well as an upping the stakes, but still relinquishing to the status quo kind of movie. It was really good. Check it out if you haven't yet.
Come on, he's a grave robber.
I only collect spare parts, not like they're using them.
And you're using them why?
For hockey.
That sport is a lot weirder than I thought.
Go Figure is a movie I watched with my dad while we were cooking dinner, and we both got so distracted by this thing that I almost burnt our food. Luckily, it came out well. It was just nice and charred, so that must mean that Go Figure was an interesting movie? It kinda was, but not really. Go Figure follows Caitlin Kingsford, who dreams of being a figure skating champion. But she's really dismayed by all of the hate and vitriol that all of her fellow competition girls give off to each other. She wants to train with one of the most talented figure skater coaches in the country, but she only teaches at a prestigious private school that her parents can't afford, so she needs to get a scholarship. However, this school doesn't provide any figure skating scholarships, they only provide hockey scholarships. So through some under-the-table maneuvering, she's able to get a hockey scholarship even though she's never played that sport before. So she has to deal with the clash of culture between figure skating and ice hockey, and has to deal with trying to learn a brand new sport while being good at the current sport that she works on, and passing her classes, and rising above all of the hate she's getting from her family. Her parents are the least supportive people I've probably ever seen in a DCOM before. They were rooting for her downfall the entire time. It was crazy. She makes friends with her ice hockey team, and eventually she grows a real sisterhood with them. And she realizes that that's what she's been missing this whole time, because in her figure skating competitions, everyone hated each other and there was no sense of camaraderie. Everybody was so pitted against each other. But in ice hockey, they're all working together as a team, and that's what makes them succeed. So she's able to find something in hockey that she didn't have in figure skating. Of course, there's always a big game at the end. Gotta have the big game. And at this sense, it's the final game for ice hockey and a competition to see who will qualify for the Olympics in ice skating. At first, I thought they were gonna subvert the trope of she's gonna do both by having her pick ice hockey, realizing that her companionship with her teammates meant more to her than competing at the Olympics, which I thought it was a refreshing and interesting twist. But no, they do end up, through maneuvering, end up pausing the figure skating competition, and she's able to make it there and she's able to perform. And of course she wins, so she qualifies for the Olympics. It's a happy ending all around. Caitlin is the most girly of girly girls to ever exist, and so that's conflicted with a lot of her more brutish ice hockey teammates. And she starts out as quite vain and individualistic, and then grows to become more grounded and aware of her surroundings. So this is the DCOM formula working in strides, doing its job. The machine is just pumping away, and I can't be too mad at it because of that. I quite enjoyed Go Figure. I actually got really into hockey this year. I've been watching the Stanley Cup in 2024. I'm an Oilers fan, which is probably not a good thing so far, but we'll see how things go. Go Figure is a very cute movie. If you're into figure skating or ice hockey, it might be a fun watch, especially if you have a little one near you or something.
The Industrial Revolution, to me, is just like a story I know called The Puppy Who Lost His Way. The world was changing, and the puppy was getting bigger.
Fun fact, this movie, along with Now You See It, are the only two DCOMs to not have a Wikipedia page. So, anyways, I will say the dog in Life is Ruff is really cute. That's about the only reason to watch this movie, which in that case, maybe just find a gift set on Tumblr of the dog and then do much more better things with your day. Or maybe adopt a dog. That's what the main character Calvin Wheeler, played by Kyle Massey, does when he's strapped for some extra cash. Life is Rough follows Calvin as he wants to buy a rare comic book along with his best friend, but he doesn't have the money to do so. And he learns that dog competitions pay really well, so he immediately adopts a dog and tries to train it to be in the competition. He's one of the most popular kids in school. He helps the high school basketball team win, so he has them on speed dial and they'll do whatever he wants for him. It's pretty interesting. And he adopts a dog named Tycho, who is well known for biting and chewing on things, so he isn't that favorable at the animal shelter. One of his classmates, Emily, works at the adoption agency and sets him up with Tycho in the first place because she just hates to see the dogs, not get adopted. But she hates dog competitions, so he has to keep it on the down low from her. We watch Calvin as he absolutely struggles to hide the dog from his parents and try to train it, and that all just go to shit and fail. This movie is very different from Hounded because all of this pain and suffering that Calvin goes through throughout the movie is all self-inflicted. He just wants money that he doesn't need. It's not like he's trying to pay his parents' bills or anything. He just wants an extra special thing that he could just slowly over time save up money for. But he wants the money right here, right now, so he adopts the dog and has to go through all this pain because of it. His parents think he's extremely irresponsible and, well, stupid, but once he adopts the dog and has to hide up for all of the dog's mistakes and messes that he makes, they see him as more responsible because he's actually taking accountability for his actions and cleaning up his messes that he makes, when they're actually the dog's messes. Eventually, he does tell his parents, and he's able to get the dog ready and groomed up for the competitions. They try and do the angle of Tycho being like this mangy mutt they found on the side of the road, but he really just looks like a normal dog. I think he's a purebred. Everyone keeps jumping and getting scared of the dog when he just looks completely normal. And Tycho never actually gets good at the obstacle course that you're supposed to do for the dog competitions. They just kind of destroy the entire set, but look cool while doing it, so they end up winning the prize money. At this point, Calvin's had a turn of heart and he realizes that he loves dogs and he's not just trying to use them for free labor. So he ends up getting his comic book that he wanted and then donating the rest of the money to the animal shelter because it was strapped for cash as well. Overall, Life is Rough is another example of some decom cheese that if you remember this movie from when you were young, I'd recommend you check it out again because it's probably going to hold up pretty well. But it's nothing that I have nostalgia for or really interest in, so I'm not going to go back to it, but it's probably going to go in the middle of the list. Not too bad of a movie. I'm recording this on camera, so if I have any asides, I can actually use my face instead of just putting up the thing.png. Shout out to my friend Anakin for creating that for me, by the way. They just did it for no reason, just because they wanted to one day, and I asked if I could use it in the video, and I realized I'm literally using it all the time just because I think it's so funny. Make sure to follow them on their art channel because they post a lot of really good art. Anyways, this is a review video, so review time. On July 29th, 2005, the movie Sky High debuted in theaters. Even though this movie is made by Disney, it was not made by Disney Channel. So because of that, I won't be reviewing it in this video.
What up, Chicky, chicky, check it out. You got T Vega, that's Tori Vegadocious. Initials TV on your TV.
Not that much fun.
I was being urban.
Yeah, not really.
I remember really liking the Proud Family movie growing up. And even though I completely remembered the plot, I somehow completely forgot about the quality of it, which is not that high. The Proud Family movie follows Penny Proud as she's about to turn 16 and is auditioning to be in a music video for a rapper called 15 Cent. He ends up growing fond with her at the auditions, and they end up kissing at the end, but her extremely strict father Oscar gets really mad at the fact that she was kissing a boy at age 16 and decides to cancel her birthday party. This kind of rift in their relationship is really what the movie is going to explore. However, this is only a side plot to the actual plot of the movie, which is that there are peanut mutants out there. Oscar creates a serum or a sauce that's supposed to make his snacks taste better. Was he a snack guy? Did he create snacks? I literally remember nothing, and I mean nothing, about the Proud Family TV show. I watched it all the time as a kid, and I don't have any recollection of what happened in that show. It turns out that the sauce doesn't make the food tastier, it makes it like mutate and grow, and it has no expiration date. So a guy named Dr. Carver overhears this and invites them to his private island so he can steal the sauce to, I don't know, cause a peanut uprising. Plot is so fucking weird, man. I think this is one of the biggest reasons why I'm like not the biggest fan of this movie. We learned that the Dr. Carver that we've been following throughout the movie is actually a peanut clone of the original Dr. Carver, who is a long-line descendant of George Washington Carver, the guy who invented peanut butter along with a bunch of other things. He makes clones of all of the Proud family members and sends them off to pretend to live their normal life, although they accidentally swap Pennies, so clone Penny is still on the island, the real family, and real Penny is with the clones in the real world. She learns what it's like to have a carefree family and realizes that she actually appreciates her family's strict and structured life that they give her, even though she was bucking against it in the beginning of the movie. However, something they don't really acknowledge is the fact that, like, Oscar being very strict and overreactive towards her experiencing normal things, while yes, is rooted in the fact that he's afraid of watching her grow up, is still kind of inappropriate. This is just my personal opinion, and I understand that people will disagree with me on this, and that's completely fine. It's just something that as an adult I've kind of noticed and have grown to dislike in general. But I did want to mention it because it did affect how I watched the movie and my enjoyment of it overall, so that's all. Anyways, Penny saves the day, and she turns all of the mutant clones into peanut butter. Overall, I really don't mind the Proud Family movie, and I really do think if you are going to go rewatch the original show, this should be included, whether it's retconned or not. But if not, I don't really see any need to watch it.
You know exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. Just like I know exactly what you are, witch. I can smell the stink of it on you.
Oh hell yeah, it's Twitches time. Twitches is another DCOM classic. Highly recommend you watch this thing right out the gate. Twitches follows the twin witch daughters of Apollo and Artemis. The darkness is spreading in their dimension of the Coventry, so they are sent to Earth to be protected. They are separated at birth and sent to different adoption agencies to avoid being found. They have powers because their extremely powerful warlock father, Aaron Dubar, transfers his powers to the two of them to keep the magic safe when he is killed by the darkness. On Earth, they grow up with extremely polar opposite lives. Alexandra Alex Nicole Fielding is considered a night owl and can never wake up early in the morning. Her relatively poor adopted mother ends up dying a few months before her 21st birthday, so she is essentially homeless and is couch surfing, staying with friends here and there while she tries to find a job. Meanwhile, Apollo is Cameron Elizabeth Barnes, who was adopted by a wealthy family and lives a high society socialite lifestyle. On their 21st birthday, they both end up meeting for the first time at a store, and I think it kind of mirrors their meeting in Sister Sister. At first I was like, wow, how lazy are they that they wrote the exact same meetup for them in both medias, but in retrospect it's like, oh, it was a reference to Sister Sister, most likely. They learned that they are sisters, and they learned that they have magical powers, and they have to navigate this all while some weirdness is going on in the background. As soon as the twins meet, the Coventry is alerted that they are alive, and the darkness goes after them. Their mother, Miranda, who married their uncle, Thantos, ends up having to try and find them. We then learn that some true Hamlet bullshit has been going on in the background, because Thantos is actually evil and killed his brother to gain the throne, and then Miranda married him to stay queen. So now the twins and her mother must defeat Thantos, who is the person who started the darkness in the first place, all while trying to make sure they make it to their 21st birthday party. But the two eventually end up on the same page, and they end up defeating Thantos. They then celebrate their birthday on Earth with all of their adopted parents, and also the two quirky side characters who were kind of watching over them throughout their whole life. I forgot to mention them. Their names are David and Emily. They're kind of like the main source of comic relief in this movie because it's actually kind of a serious film when you think about it. I like that we actually get to follow somewhat adult characters for the first time, since every character we follow in these movies are in middle school or high school age at best. I get it because they're kids' movies for kids, but it was refreshing to see other people not having to attend public school for once. I know this was because the Maori sisters were already older when they got the DCOM movie deal and didn't think it would be realistic for them to play teenagers, so I'm glad they were able to reach that agreement instead of trying to force their narrative onto them. I think the movie has a very unique and distinct flair because of that. So overall, I love Twitches, and I highly recommend you watch it around Halloween time. Or just like in general, it's just a really fun little made-for-TV kind of supernatural film. There's a lot of quirks and a lot of charm to this.
No one sings at college.
What?
No. And from what I can tell, this is America's only singing high school.
Honestly, what can I even say about High School Musical that hasn't been said already? This is one of the most popular, most famous movies, I would say, of the 21st century so far. And it happens to be a TV movie. This is something that I think really needs to be highlighted and exacerbated on while I am working on this video. At this point in time, the biggest cultural things that were happening in society were either on radio or on TV or in the movies. And the fact that just 10 years later, that is definitely not going to be the case is very fascinating, and I want us to take note of it right now. Do I even need to explain the plot of High School Musical to you? You guys know the plot of High School Musical. Okay, so I just got really embarrassed because I had my window open, which I'm facing right now, and it was letting in a nice breeze. And I heard somebody park their car right under my window and get out, go inside the building that we live in together, right as I was like, do I even need to explain High School Musical to you? In my Chandler Bing voice. So I immediately got very embarrassed and closed the window. So yeah, if I seem a little bit more low energy right now, it's because I was shamed. I felt shame. High School Musical follows the two characters of Troy Bolton and Gabriella Montez. They live nowhere near each other but end up meeting on New Year's Eve at a ski resort. They bond over a really nice karaoke session and then think they're never going to see each other again. That is until we find out that Gabriella has moved and is now going to East High, the same high school that Troy goes to. He's a really popular basketball guy, and even though he has some interest in singing, he's never shared this with his friends and didn't even know he had this interest until he sang with Gabriella. Gabriella is a nerdy kid who really puts her head into her books because she's constantly being moved around because of her mother's work. So when the two of them hear that there is a school musical happening, Gabriella thinks it might be interesting to audition. However, mean girl Sharpay Evans and her brother Ryan are completely against the idea of them being overshown for the musical. They are classic theater kids. They know their way around a jazz square too, okay? So we have another case of Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off, where we have a main character who is into one sport, but actually has interest in a creative endeavor. In this case, instead of baseball and cooking, it is basketball and singing. This is the second ever musical that Disney Channel did, Cheetah Girls being the first, of course. And it is a capital M musical. Cheetah Girls just had live performances or montages where music played in the background. This is my nostalgia talking, but the music is so good. I watched all of the High School Musical movies we're going to be reviewing today with my father to try and get some outside perspective on the matter, and he is not into musicals at all, and he still didn't like the musical aspect, but he really appreciated the story that was being told throughout these movies and how kind of interesting all of the different components and elements came together. There's a lot of thought and effort put into this movie, and I think that contributed to it being such a cultural phenomenon. Overall, it's High School Musical. Obviously it's gonna be in the top 10. What movies will go over it is gonna be a big question, and we'll see where things go from now on. So, I remember liking Cowbells the first time I saw it growing up, although I never thought about it for years afterwards. This is another movie starring Allison Milchaka, although it also happens to include her sister, Amanda. Of course, this is the classic sister duo Allie and AJ, who have just some stellar top-tier music out there for people to listen to. So Cowbells follows Taylor and Courtney Callum, who are extremely spoiled young girls, even though they do have a heart of gold. They are a bit ditzy and are constantly making expensive mistakes and really charging up their dad's credit card, who became wealthy because he runs a dairy factory. Their father is going to take a well-earned vacation, one that he hasn't taken in years, and right before he's about to leave, they end up setting his entire kitchen on fire. So as punishment, he sets them to work at the dairy factory. They of course do the same thing they were always doing, which is causing a lot of expensive mistakes and being ambivalent towards it. Although the older one really starts to realize the errors of their ways. She ends up falling in love with a good old farm boy who is teaching her how to drive stick because she was gifted a beautiful car for her 16th birthday that was a stick shift. We learn that the father's best friend actually scammed the company out of a lot of money, so because of that, all of the workers at the dairy factory are not getting paid. They all decide to quit and go on strike, which would mean that all of the dairy would go bad, which means that they would probably go out of business. So Taylor and Courtney have to all of a sudden make some very tough decisions as young girls while their father is out of town. Taylor, who is the more level-headed one, decides that it would be best to spend the money that was gonna be used for Courtney's cotillion party to be used as the money to pay the people working at the factory, to give them paychecks. And Courtney's extremely against this because she's a bit too selfish and not thinking rationally about anything, and doesn't really care about these poor people who won't be able to afford rent and will probably get kicked out of their homes because she wants a fun little party, and is afraid of what her friends will think about her and call her poor and stuff. It takes until one of her friends finally admits that she's middle class and not wealthy like the rest of them, and how she completely takes her privilege and money for granted, that she realizes that yeah, maybe we should, care about the working class people who make our rich lifestyle possible. They all band together in the middle of the night and try really, really hard to fix all of the factory errors and get a shipment out so that they can stay afloat. All while the father finally comes back into town to help fix everything. So even though they're not going to be financially as stable as they were before, they did save their company from falling into complete ruin. Overall, I really like Cowbells. It's a bit of an average movie, but it's not too bad. I really enjoyed it.
I'm the one who's going to defeat you.
Okay. Hit me.
So I don't know if you guys remember what Netflix was like during the early 2010s, but famously, they actually had a few Disney Channel projects on there. They had some lower level TV shows like Ant Farm on there, and more importantly, Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior, which I watched so much as a kid. Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior follows Wendy Wu, who is a popular teenage girl who cares about all of the frivolous American things in life. She is then visited by a Buddhist monk named Shen. He says that she is the reincarnation of a famous warrior who is supposed to stop these evil spirits from destroying the world, and that he is destined to die while helping her in the battle. He gives her this ugly amulet that she's supposed to wear to protect her from the evil spirits that she immediately throws away, and then is immediately attacked by a spirit. She cares too much about winning Homecoming Queen to stop the evil demons, okay? There is a lot of really cool special effects and fighting in this movie, and I think that really puts it a cut above the rest. They really got some good stunt artists to do the work here, because man is it fun to watch. Her grandmother is the only one who knows the truth behind Shen's visit, and they pretend that he's her cousin to explain why he's just appeared all of a sudden, and why he's not American at all, because he's visiting from China. Eventually, Wendy Wu starts to understand the seriousness of the situation and starts to train, with Shen having the 5 animals of Chinese martial arts teaching her different skills. The tiger, the snake, the crane, and the leopard. She prepares for the battle, but then when she learns that it's on homecoming night, she decides to opt out, prioritizing her real life to this theoretical martial arts evil spirit's life. Her homecoming rival is possessed by Yan Lo, who is the true villain. And with the help of Shen, who doesn't end up dying, she ends up saving his life during his sacrifice, they are able to defeat the evil spirits. Apologies for the dip in audio quality for a brief second. I'm currently editing this video at the library and recording on my phone. I've done some more research into the history of wuxia storytelling and wuxia films, hope I'm pronouncing that right, which this movie is clearly inspired by along with other martial arts films, and is attempting to be a Disney Channel version of. I've only ever really seen Western takes on this genre like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Kung Fu Panda, along with martial arts inspired movies like Kill Bill and such, so I don't know much about this very old history of this storytelling convention and the subgenre that this film is trying to replicate. Just wanted to clarify that since I had a feeling I'd missed something when reviewing this movie originally and went back to do a little bit more research. Anyways, back to the review. But overall, I still love this movie. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on it, and it's gonna go pretty high in the ranking. Man, this movie slaps, purely for the martial arts, moments alone.
Well, if that makes me a villain, then so fucking be it. I can play the fucking villain.
Yeah, do it!
Read It and Weep is definitely an interesting film. Jameson Jamie Bartlett is a very creative young girl who is constantly writing about the woes of her life in her journal. She has this really cool iPad journal, which was not common at all in 2006, so props to them predicting the future. She writes in her journal like it's a story, changing the names of all of the people in her life to characters and making herself this cool and calm, collected person, known as Isabella, or Iz. She makes herself insert Iz, a really popular girl with amazing powers who is always able to defeat the villains, aka her bullies, and save the day. She has to write a paper for an English class, but her printer dies, so she sends her English paper over to one of her friends to print it out for her, but instead she accidentally sends her journal. Her friend accidentally turns in her personal private journal into her teacher, who immediately enters it in a writing contest, and it wins and is published as a book. This is like some nightmare territory here. If I was ever a journaler, which I'm not, but if I was a journaler and my journal got published, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I don't want to, I was gonna make a joke like, oh, I would kill myself, but that's inappropriate and I'm gonna get demonetized for saying that, so. She immediately gets a bunch of press and attention for this, which honestly kind of makes sense. She is a freshman in high school and has written a best-selling novel on accident, so I could see why she'd be getting on talk shows and stuff. She grows a massive ego, and she actually sees Iz in her life. Famously, this movie stars both Kay Pennebaker and Danielle Pennebaker, the latter you might recognize from Stuck in the Suburbs. I had no idea they were siblings at first, and I was like, dang, I never realized how much Danielle Pennebaker looks like this actress. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's because they're related. She eventually has a third act break because all of her friends disavow her after she's extremely selfish and ignores all of their previously planned things now that she's famous. So at the dance, she apologizes to everybody and makes a grand gesture for her friends. One of her friends is an artist and the other one is an activist, so they work together to create a Save the Whale thing at their school dance, which is ocean themed. And so as an act of love to her friends, she dumps a bunch of seaweed on everybody. It's a really fun, kind of girly and very sweet film, so in that sense, I would recommend it if you have a young kid around you. It's a really cute children's film, but as a grown-up, I don't really find a lot of satisfying, story beats to it. This is not something that I struggle with personally. If some of y'all have an ego, though. But yeah, overall, great movie. I think it fits really well within the context of this whole realm. It was quite fun to watch.
I don't think Jesus would approve of that. Well, you can tell Jesus that the bitch is back.
We've made it to Cheetah Girls 2, y'all. I feel like this movie was always more iconic than the first one for some reason, although I don't prefer it to the first one. The Cheetah Girls 2, apparently also known as The Cheetah Girls When in Spain, follows the Cheetah Girls as they audition to be in a Barcelona music festival. This is because Chanel's mother, who is dating a guy who lives in Paris but is actually Spanish, this is totally not a retcon, guys, I promise, she is going away over summer to Spain to spend time with her mother's boyfriend's family. And the Barcelona Music Festival is just an excuse to get the rest of her friends to come with her. They run into a local star who has been constantly auditioning to enter into this music festival, but hasn't won yet, and her mother is a bit of a momager and really wants to get the Cheetah Girls out of the competition. Luke, who is Chanel's mother's boyfriend, has a godsend named Joaquin, who is a famous dancer, and immediately has a connection with Dorinda. I think he's supposed to be a prince or a duke or something, and he runs a dance studio, so Dorinda goes to visit him. The only reason why I'm mentioning this scene is because they have the song Dance With Me by Drew Seeley in it, and it is one of the best songs out of the whole Cheetah Girls discography, even though it's not by them. Everyone gets extremely distracted in Barcelona with all of their other events, so Galleria feels that they don't really care about the Cheetah Girls anymore and that it might be done. So she decides to leave to go to Paris to go see her father. Her father's Perusian, by the way. I don't know if I ever mentioned that. It's not really that important, but that's why it's okay for her to just get on a train to Paris. All the other girls realize that they've been kind of selfish in ignoring the Cheetah Girls, which is the whole reason why they're here in the first place, and they all bring her back, and they audition to be in the music festival, and they win. So they perform a really fun and amazing performance at the end, and they didn't really write a conclusion for the movie. It just kind of ends with the big performance. Again, another example of me seeing a lot of cracks in the walls that is the Cheetah Girls, and if they'll actually be able to sustain themselves as a popular girl group. In all of these movies, Galleria is always kind of separated from the other three girls, and I don't know, maybe that's possible foreshadowing? It kind of makes me feel like they already had run out of ideas when immediately they just send them off to another country and go, that's gonna be the point of this movie, is that they go to Barcelona. I would only recommend this if you're like really into watching all the Cheetah Girls movies. If you're only interested in like learning what the whole hype is, then just watch the first one. The other two like aren't that important, and we're gonna talk about the third one a little bit later on in this video.
Forever and ever. Amen.
Tonight, you're going to die!
Okay, here's where we get a bit controversial. Now, probably not as controversial as me hating the first Xenon movie, but still pretty controversial. As a kid, I loved Halloweentown 4: Return to Halloweentown. I thought it was a genuine good movie, and even though I had some really big issues with the film, whenever it came on, I was excited to watch it. Now, this generally bucks against modern perceptions of the fourth Halloweentown movie, which people say like did not need to happen and is extremely unnecessary. Coming from a more modern perspective on things as a grown-up, I can't help but agree. This was one of the more disappointing rewatches of this whole series so far. One of the biggest problems with Return to Halloweentown, of course, is the fact that they recast Marnie. So I've been reading Disney High. The book's over there. I don't want to go get it. I'm tired. And I've been reading this book, and this is the first time I've ever heard of an explanation as to why Kimberly J. Brown did not come back for the fourth film. She had stated multiple times that she was completely gang-ho, willing to be in the fourth movie, but for whatever reason, they decided not to pick her and recast her with Sarah Paxton. But we finally know the real reason, which is money. Kimberly J. Brown wanted a higher salary for the fourth movie, which she probably did deserve for being the main character in a 4-movie series. And they refused to budge, so they fired her. That just goes to show you how expendable these networks see these actors as. That they're like fully willing to just cast somebody else in the movie, which is like kind of screwed up. So I feel really bad that Sarah Paxton gets so much hate even to this day for this point. She was like literally just doing her job. Part of me really feels that, like, once they couldn't get Kimberly J. Brown back, it might have been better if they would have just pretended that this was a completely different witch Halloween movie and just not bother to try and make it a continuation of Halloweentown High. I have a lot of thoughts on the Halloweentown series, and part of me thinks that maybe I might just need to make my own video about it, because I have a lot of thoughts on what they did to the fourth movie that I probably can't fit in this review, unless I want this section of the video to be like 15 minutes long. Halloweentown 2 follows Marnie as she goes off to college, and she's been accepted to which university? It is a bit disappointing that the fourth movie in this series is kind of really bad, when the third movie did a really good job of wrapping up the entire story. I understand now why everyone was so upset with this movie. I think that this could be reworked into a really good standalone witch film that had nothing to do with the Halloweentown trilogy. So if you're gonna watch the Halloweentown movies, just skip the fourth one, unless you're ready to be disappointed. I don't even know where I'm gonna put this in the ranking. Kind of low, but then I have such a fondness because I loved it so much as a kid, so it's probably not gonna be like in the bottom 10, which is like realistically where it should be. Y'all, let's jump in. Are you as excited as I am for this? I loved Jump In as a kid, and I specifically was very fascinated with Corbin Blue's musical discography, which one of his songs is featured in this movie. Corbin Blue plays Isidore Izzy Daniels, who is a star boxer in Brooklyn, who wants the approval of his father, who was also a boxing champion in his day. Kiki Palmer plays Mary. She's on a competitive double dutch team called the Joy Jumpers. Izzy loves to make fun of her for this because it's such a girly thing. I never really thought of double dutch as like a girls only thing. Maybe like this movie really broke down the barriers between double dutching. Izzy's younger sister, Karen, is really into double dutch, and so she forces him to take her to a double dutch competition where he's actually quite impressed with all of the cool athletic capabilities of it. The Joy Jumpers, which consists of Mary, Shauna, Keisha, and Yolanda, get 4th place and just barely qualify for the state championships. Yolanda thinks that their routine is like totally whack, so she leaves and joins a competition. Because they really want to qualify for the finals, they ask Izzy to join, and he is extremely apprehensive against this, but eventually he agrees to fill in until they can find another member. He grows to really like Double Dutch and the athleticism that comes with it, and slowly starts to slack off on his boxing because he's focusing on Double Dutch. There's also this mean bully kid named Rodney who has a struggling home life, so that's why he takes all his rage out on everyone else, and he is one of the competing boxers. They both want to go to the Golden Gloves competition or whatever, so they have an exemplary match to see who will qualify, and Izzy wins. But Rodney just can't deal with this, so he asks for a rematch constantly, and he continues to antagonize Izzy. Eventually, Rodney finds out that Izzy is a Double Dutcher, and he tells the whole school, which makes Izzy really shameful. So Izzy quits the team because he's embarrassed. Not helped when even his own father is like, what the fuck, man? You Double Dutch? You don't care about boxing? And we have that classic TV movie trope of, it's not my dream, Dad, it's yours. Eventually, though, Izzy is able to come around. He ends up standing up to Rodney and not fighting him, but using his words to tell him that, you know, he doesn't need to fight him anymore, that they have no reason to be angry at each other. And this changes Rodney's life. So Izzy joins the Joy Jumpers again. They've changed their name to the Hot Chili Steppers, which is like, it's okay. And they end up winning the state competition, getting first place. This whole movie has been on and off narrated, which usually I'm not a big fan of, but we then learned that this whole story that is being narrated is being told by Rodney to a bunch of little kids as an inspirational story. Overall, Jump In is like classic DCOM cheese. If you want to know what like a real DCOM is like the real vibe you can get from this kind of series, then watch Jump In. Welcome to Disney Channel's biggest, and some may say best, era in all of Disney Channel history. We are fully starting to enter my nostalgia window. This era and the next were the ones I remember being the biggest for me in the sense of watching TV, which, yes, does age me, but I think it ages y'all as well. I literally watched so much TV as a kid, it was my main pastime, and I think that's why I'm so obsessed with it now, because pretty much all of these movies have stuck around in my brain like some kind of Mouseketeer virus. Oddly, except for the year 2009, which for some reason is like a black hole of memory. I must have been really busy doing other things as a 6 or 7-year-old. You know how kids these days will spend 8 hours on TikTok rotting their brains? Well, I was doing the exact same thing, but with TV and reruns of Full House instead. Things never really change. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What was the ribbon era? Well, it gets its name from the way a colorful ribbon would whip across the screen to the cue of the Disney Channel theme song, and would eventually form the Disney Channel logo with the mouse ears. This is also known as the loop era because of that exact reason. Personally, I like the term ribbon era more, so that's the why I've been using it throughout this video. Little icons would appear and a stock image of the characters would pop out inside of it, all while an annoyingly plucky guy would make puns about whatever show was up next. Along with letting you know what the vibe of the show was, so people would know if it was something they wanted to watch or not. This is also when we get the new DCOM introduction sequence, which there were many of. Instead of the upbeat, goofy pop song that said, "Let's watch a Disney Channel movie," there was a more cinematic flourish of music that would play as the camera whooshed through different settings and different vignettes of many DCOMs that people remembered. This more cinematic approach, where they highlighted their back catalog, did a great job of elevating the text onto that of elitehood, making the DCOM feel as serious and as legit as any other movie, whether it had a theatrical release or not. As I said earlier, I watched all of High School Musical with my dad, and at the end of the second one, he was shocked to find out that these were all made-for-TV movies, since he wasn't really aware of just how popular they were back in the day, just for being made for television. And that anecdote really highlights how important the DCOM was at the end of the day, whether or not you thought they were better when you were younger or when you were older or whatever. Even if you think they were better in the Zoog era or later on in the Family era, DCOMs were never more culturally relevant than they were at this exact moment. They never were and probably never will be again. But that's because the DCOM is dead, but I already said I would talk about that later. Even though the Bounce era did have a significant dip in DCOM output, this era has another, with only 11 movies coming out within the 3-year span, which is less than the entire year of 2000 alone, which is so crazy to think about. They've been poof-pointing their own DCOM output so far by cutting it in half, by cutting the amount of movies within a given brand refresh in half every time. We went from 40 to 27 to now 11. This is most likely because their TV show output became the most popular moneymaker, with shows like Hannah Montana, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and the launching of Disney XD all came along with this era. I told you this era was big and legendary, so they probably went all in on the TV game and let their movies be more advertisements for those projects, if that makes sense. Without further ado, let's get into the movies, since I've been really hyping up this era as the important landmark that it truly is.
You know, boy, I don't think I've ever felt as close to you as I do right.
Does anyone know that Johnny Kampala Back on Board is a real movie? Because I've seen it already and I still don't feel like it was a real movie. Johnny, who is now significantly older at age 17, gets to return to Oahu, Hawaii to visit his grandfather, who is now getting married. He's getting married to a kind of younger woman who happens to have a 12-year-old son. So his new uncle Chris is actually 5 years younger than him. Sam is in this movie again, and he's been recasted, which is a real shame. And Johnny is constantly being tasked with babysitting his uncle while they prepare for the wedding. Grandfather Johnny Tsunami is actually opening a surf shop, which his son and Johnny's father finds absolutely flabbergasting because, you know, Johnny's whole thing wasn't having a job, but now that he's getting married, a lot of things seem to be changing in his life. There's actually a really beautiful scene with him where he describes like why he's opening this surf shop and explaining how like he needs to find new purpose in his life because he's getting older, so he can't really surf that often. That part I really liked. Everything to do with the grandfather is just like A-tier stuff. I love it. Chris does not want to learn how to surf. He is an extremely bratty kid who hates surfing, probably because I think him and his mom are from like Philadelphia or something, and he's actually really into the sport of dirt boarding. The skating crew that Chris likes to hang out with are constantly getting in trouble with the cops because they're riding their dirt boards on private property and tearing up all of the grass. Apparently Chris has already been arrested multiple times for trespassing, and his mother really wants him to get his act together. Chris is played by Jake T. Austin, if you weren't aware, and he turns in a spectacularly bratty performance in this movie. I was sick of this little shit. Especially because Johnny is like just such a cool, awesome guy, and it kind of sucks to see this like little kid just like hating on him for no reason. Obviously it's not for no reason, of course. I mean, they moved to a random place on the other side of the country, and his mother is getting married to this much older man. Literally his grandson is older than him, so I can see why he has a lot of angst. Johnny's also apparently really good at skateboarding because he's just like the most athletic, amazing person of all time. Eventually, Chris realizes that he doesn't want his mother to sacrifice her happiness for his comfort, so he quickly decides to get over all of his hangups. Carla is the name of Chris's mother, by the way, and she finally gets to marry Johnny, the grandfather, and they all end very happily. This is another thing I learned from Disney High. Apparently a Johnny Tsunami movie was supposed to happen pretty soon after the first one did, but because of the tsunami that happened in the 2000s, they quickly halted production. And that's why this movie is not called like Johnny Tsunami 2 Electric Boogaloo or anything like that. So yes, this movie does kind of stick out like a sore thumb, and it's definitely an oddity in this list because we've definitely moved past the Johnny Tsunami era of DCOMs. Overall, I think this is a really good movie, and I'm surprised it got so like buried. They used to air Johnny Tsunami all the time on the network, and yet the sequel, I feel like never came up. But it's not too bad, and I do think it is a good watch, just out of pure curiosity if you've seen the first one and you want to see what they would do with another film. It's just alright. I didn't mind it at all.
Who are you talking to?
You.
Word of advice. Look at who you're talking to. Once you leave this school, no one projects or cheats out.
Okay, y'all, I'm gonna need you to wisen up. I'm gonna need you to start really paying attention. Put down the Subway Surfers or your crocheting project because this is some really serious shit we're gonna be talking about right now. This next movie we're going to talk about is the most watched DCOM of all time, and actually the most watched thing on cable television of all time. You can't count antenna television, of course, because you have the moon landing and the most recent Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl performance. But for cable television, as in stuff that is on cable exclusively, this is the most watched thing on cable ever. This thing got 17 million views concurrently, as in at one point in time, 17 million people were watching the same thing at the same time in this country. And on top of that, it might be the best DCOM ever. High School Musical 2 is such a famous and good movie that I feel like I don't have to explain to you what it is. Again, if you're this far into this video, you know what High School Musical 2 is. High School Musical 2 follows the gang we were following in the previous movie now that it's summer vacation. Sharpay just really wants to date Troy, so she essentially decides to offer him everything he could ever want financially, just for attention from him. She gets him hired at the country club that her family owns, and because, Troy is just such a good guy, he asks if all of his buddies can also work at the country club, and they say yes. So Sharpay thinks that she's going to spend the entire summer alone with Troy, but now all of her classmates in the Wildcats are working there as well. Sharpay does function more as a villain in this film than in the first one, and she was already a pretty big antagonistic force in the first one, but in the first movie, it is more of like the status quo is the main antagonist, but in this one, it's Sharpay. She is actively trying to make everything worse, just so she can get with Troy. She isolates him from all of his friends by giving up a promotion, and essentially offering him a college scholarship by letting him hang out with college basketball players, which, boy, makes you realize that, Troy Bolton is not set up to be a basketball player in the NBA. Or even just in the college circuit, he's as tall as me. I'm the same height as Troy Bolton. You think I can play basketball? Gabriella, pretty early on, catches on to Sharpay's shenanigans and decides to leave because she really just cannot put up with the fact that Troy is being so easily manipulated by Sharpay. She sings one of the best breakup songs of all time, and then runs off, which causes Troy to reflect and sing one of the best redemption songs of all time. He then apologizes to all of his friends, and they get their act together, and they have a big, wonderful performance at the end. The songs are better than ever, the choreography is better than ever. I think Chad and Ryan are gay for each other, which is its own thing. Yeah, just overall, one of the best movies ever made. Are you kidding me? This thing is amazing. This is number one right now. I can't even front with y'all. This is number one. There will never be any experience that was better than watching High School Musical 2 for the first time, and then watching the premiere pilot episode of famous animated TV show, Phineas and Ferb. Truly a legendary moment in history. Anyways, on to the next movie.
Out with the trash. Give Papa my regards.
So I remember watching my DVR copy of Twitches 2 all the time growing up, sometimes even more than the original, which is kind of weird. Also, the premiere episode of Wizards of Waverly Place aired after this movie, so that's how you know it's important. Twitches 2, spelt T-O-O, follows Alex and Cameron again as they try and work and develop their magical powers, as well as them struggling to get along because, they are so different and all. Their mother, Queen Miranda, calls them back to the land of the Coventry for a special mission. Oh, and they're magical sidekick buddies, Karsha and Aina? Fuck, I forgot her name. They're getting married, whatever. Miranda wants them to vanquish the land of the Shadowlands, because that is where Thanos was banished to once he was defeated. Although there are some whispers that possibly, maybe, their father is alive in the Shadowlands as well. They have to perform a spell during a solar eclipse, which will vanquish the Shadowlands for forever, and Alex becomes apprehensive because she thinks there's a way to save and bring their father back to life. She's also starting college, which is pretty cool, and they both get love interests. Alex kind of has a thing going with Marcus, who is Cameron's ex-boyfriend, and Cameron falls for a guy named Dimitri in the Coventry, but he pretends he's a king when he's actually just a servant boy. Anyways, Alex and Cameron try their best to work on getting the spell right, and they keep messing up, all while Alex is finding hints of her father maybe trying to speak to her. During the solar eclipse when they're doing the spell, Alex is able to confirm that her father Aaron is hidden in the Shadow Realm, so she gives him all of her magic to bring him back to life. Unfortunately, it was actually Thanos in disguise. But Aaron was also actually alive, so they bring him back to life as well, and then they defeat Thanos for the second time. This time for good, I'm pretty sure. And then at the end, they're able to go to a beautiful wedding, and also, I think, reveal magic to their best friends because they caught them. And overall, great end of the series. I think all of the magical endeavors are really cute and fun. I don't mind them at all, even though they can be a bit campy and sometimes awkwardly executed. I still think it adds to the charm of the film, and overall, I really enjoyed watching this. So, if you're interested in watching the Twitches movies for your Halloween viewing pleasure, throw them both on and have a good time.
They just whirlpooled into the 80s. The leg warmers are all wet. My favorite part is coming up.
I ended up really enjoying Minutemen. I watched this while making a very delicious tortellini soup that I cobbled together with random ingredients that my father had at his house while I was visiting him one weekend. I also made him some amazing coffee cake muffins the same weekend while I watched Cowbells, so that shows how many DComs I watched in just one weekend. I want to be released from this hell. Minutemen follows Jason Dolley again, the king of DComs. I don't think I mentioned it previously, but he was in Read It and Weep as Virgil Fox, which is a very interesting reference to the Roman poet, as he and his best friends Stephanie and Derek start their first day of freshman year in high school. Stephanie and Derek try out for cheerleading and football respectively. Meanwhile, Virgil is bullied for protecting this young Sheldon-looking-ass kid named Charlie Tuttle. And because of that, his old friends have completely distanced themselves from him, and he's stuck hanging out with Charlie and his nerd crew. Then Charlie invents time traveling. The two agree to build the time machine and get emo outsider mechanic whiz Zeke to help them with the hardware. He's played by Nicholas Braun, and I just know if I would have seen this movie as a kid, I would have had a big old crush on this guy, because I am a big fan of him in all of his Disney movie endeavors. They get the time machine to work and attempt and fail to do some lottery ticket shenanigans, but eventually the two go and help kids who are getting bullied on campus by going back in time to prevent the embarrassing things from happening to them. Of course, things go overboard when the time traveling is revealed to Virgil's old friends, and they ask him to aid in helping the football team score on a losing game. And just so he can have the chance to be popular, he decides to do it and ends up distancing himself from his one true friend Charlie, who was there for him even after he became a laughingstock. Jason Dolley is somehow able to make this character somewhat likable, even though the actual character is kind of a horrible person who is rude to the two guys who are actually being nice to him and wanting to hang out with him while they do the time travel stuff. And he is constantly trying to ditch them to become more popular, even though the popular kids really don't care about him. Also, they end up time traveling too much and NASA gets on their ass to shut down their time traveling. Then they open a black hole, and then they go back to the fateful day where Virgil was embarrassed. But he chooses to keep his life the way it's been this whole time, and their time travel escapades have been completely erased from the space-time continuum. Overall, I really enjoyed Minutemen. I liked the plot, and the character development was fun and enticing to watch. I would recommend you watch it if you haven't yet.
So, when he said shorty, I remember thinking, I'm about to beat this bitch up.
By the way, I will be using she, her pronouns to refer to the character Demi Lovato plays in this movie. Just wanted to let you know. Camp Rock was my shit growing up. Literally so obsessed with this movie when it came out, even though on a repeat watch, I don't think it really holds up completely. Honestly, my nostalgia is going to carry this movie a lot higher in the ranking than it deserves. With some good music and a really fun setting, it can be a somewhat competent movie at the end of the day. Camp Rock follows Demi Lovato as Mitchie, someone who really wants to go to the prestigious and expensive summer camp called Camp Rock, but can't afford it. That is until her mom gets a job catering for the year, so Mitchie can't attend. Once they get there, the glitz and glamour of the rich kids and famous celebrities who attend cause her to lie about her background to seem cool and fit in with the quote-unquote in crowd. This is another liar reveal plot kind of situation, and it's one of the main reasons that this movie is kind of spoiled for me over time, since to me it doesn't really hold up that much on a rewatch. Meanwhile, famous brother boy band Connect 3, played by the Jonas Brothers, sends their stuck-up lead member Shane Gray to Camp Rock to ditch the rock star image and connect back with his roots. While he's there, he hears Mitchie singing and becomes obsessed with learning who the mystery voice is. I mean, I would too. Demi Lovato is like one of the best singers of a generation. And he starts connecting with Mitchie while not knowing that she is the one who originally sang that song. Demi Lovato was probably my favorite of the Disney Channel A-list, along with Selena Gomez, and I've grown a recent affection for the Jonas Brothers for some random reason. And I'm finally going to attempt to watch the show Jonas, which I have never done before and somehow completely avoided. So I can fully say that I've been living the Joe Bro lifestyle for the past few months, and I've been loving it. I think my combination of love for Demi Lovato and recent hyperfixation on Jonas Brothers has caused me to overlook some things in this movie that probably aren't that good. The villains are kind of crap, and the music for some of the characters are really bad. But then again, it has some of the best Disney Channel music you could look for, specifically the song This Is Me. It's so amazing, truly something special, and it cannot be competed with. So overall, even though I know in my heart of hearts that Camp Rock isn't all that special, I'm going to be extremely unbiased and unfair and rank it higher than some of the other ones, because it was such an important movie to me as a kid and I can't help but love it now. Sorry y'all, this one really got to me. I'm gonna have to hand in my impartial movie reviewer card for this one.
He gave me this.
What?
Congratulations, Daddy.
Why was the Cheetah Girls' One World even made? All of the compounding problems that I have subtly noticed have taken inventory over the past 2 movies have built up into something horrible and intense with this picture. One World follows the Cheetah Girls without Galleria as they are splintering as a group, with college and the real world getting in the way of them fulfilling their dreams as a girl group. Their luck starts to look up once there's a casting call for a movie deal in which they audition and they all get the part. The only problem is that it's for a Bollywood movie, not a Hollywood movie, and the director was only supposed to cast 1 girl, not 3. So they all head over to India and awkwardly have to navigate both being cast in the movie and also not being cast simultaneously, since the producer of the film, which is one of the director's extended family members, wants to change a bunch of things about the movie to make it more commercially successful. They all get love interests, which end up muttering the waters of their friendships and the success of the band, and in the end, they don't even end up starring in the movie. It ends up being the choreographer who had a subtle background romance with the main lead of the movie that ends up getting the lead role. The music was just okay, and the choreo has generally not been super enjoyable throughout these films, but this one was noticeably not as good as the previous, especially compared to the Bollywood-style stuff we see the background characters doing. It's just so much better than the material they're giving to the Cheetah Girls. The character building and relationships in general is just messy and confusing. The way these people feel about each other from one scene to another varies wildly, and it's kind of frustrating yet boring to watch altogether. I understand that in the real world, the Cheetah Girls never had Raven in the band, since she decided to only sign on to do the movies and not join any real projects that the group got signed onto, like recording albums and doing guest appearances. So I understand that Raven couldn't make it for the 3rd movie because of her busy schedule, and I see no sport in being upset about that specifically. But what I am upset about is the fact that they even bothered to create this movie in the first place after knowing Raven couldn't be in it. It's almost like Disney Channel cares more about seeing the project through rather than actually making films that make sense or are enjoyable to watch. I wouldn't recommend the Cheetah Girls One World unless you were dedicated to finishing the entire series and needed to be a completionist like me. I'm really sad this series couldn't fulfill its high setting and expectations pretty well. So on October 24th, 2009, High School Musical 3 debuted in theaters. Because it was a theatrically released film, it is not a DCOM and I won't be covering it. I know that's probably very shocking for a lot of you to hear, but that is the case.
The Independent Spirit Award goes to... Let's go!
Bye-bye.
Honestly, it's kind of surprising that I ended up missing Dadnapped, because this seems like a real event-style movie and I've literally never seen it or even heard anything about it. Dadnapped follows a star-studded cast of Hannah Montana, Wizards Waverly Place, and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody fame, as well as some other familiar faces from previous DCOMs we've talked about before. Main character Melissa Morris, played by Emily Osmond, just wants to have a nice summer vacation with her estranged father Neil, who is entirely preoccupied with his extremely successful book series, Trip Zoom. What was supposed to be a fun camping trip has quickly turned into an extended stay at a dinky hotel in the middle of nowhere, where a fan convention is being held and it takes up all of her father's time. And he keeps leading her on as to when exactly they will be leaving. That is, until he's kidnapped. Or dadnapped, I should say. There are multiple twists and turns throughout the plot in this movie, and I will say that I did keep it fun and engaging. At first, I think it's this group of rotten kids who are hyper fans of Trip Zoom who kidnapped the dad, and they do technically kidnap him, but it was actually just so they could show off all of the replicas of all of the traps and sets that Trip Zoom makes in the story. And overall, they end up having a good time, and they send him on his way. He's let free. But then he's kidnapped again by 2 grown men, and this one is a real kidnap. These 2 guys, one of which is a hardened criminal, and the other of which is just kind of a goofy dude, kidnap him because the goofy one decided to write a book, but it's shit, so they want to get Neil to rewrite it to be better so they can publish it without acknowledging his presence. And sadly, Melissa is wrapped into all of this, so he's just trying to, finish the book so he can get him and his daughter back to safety. Eventually, the rotten kid group end up figuring out that they've been, actually kidnapped, and they end up helping release them. Also, the owner of the dinky hotel ends up being like the true villain at the end of the day. He's just using the 2 guys as pawns so he can get a bunch of money from this best-selling book that Neil is gonna anonymously write. But the whole fan convention gathers together to help release Neil and Melissa, and they bond over this whole traumatic experience. Dadnapped is Trauma Bonding, the movie. And then the movie going on their well-deserved family summer camping trip. I had a fun time watching Dadnapped. I don't really think I'm going to go back to it, but add this onto the list of like other DComs where it'd be really fun to have like a little kid watch it if you're babysitting or whatever. If you need another movie to add to your like nanny list, add this one maybe. It was just alright. So on April 10th, 2009, Hannah Montana the movie aired in theaters. Another example of a movie that was aired in theaters, so technically is not a DCOM, so I'm not going to be reviewing it. You guys can see what I'm saying when I say that this era was like really, really big for Disney Channel because like so many of their movies that would have been DCOMs were actually becoming theatrically released films.
Serve Golden Goat for hockey.
Okay, why did no one tell me that Hatching Pete is one of the best DComs of all time? This thing is amazing. Hatching Pete follows Jason Dolly, again, I swear he's the king of the DComs, and his asshole best friend Mitchell Musso. They play Pete Ivy and Cletus Poole respectively. Cletus is the school mascot, but he is extremely allergic to the material that the costume is made out of, so he asks Pete to fill in for one of the basketball games. Brewster High School is famously one of the worst basketball teams in the whole school district, but Pete is able to put on a pretty enticing and exciting performance as the Chicken, specifically because of his gymnastics background that he was heavily bullied for as a kid. After Cletus becomes extremely popular after being so cool at the basketball game as the mascot, even though it was actually his friend Pete, they decide that Pete is going to be the Chicken full-time. All while Cletus takes all of the credit, because Peter does not like being the center of attention and would rather Cletus take all of the credit. Pete then gets a crush on a girl named Angela, and he can't help but show his affections for her when he's in the chicken suit. This of course leads Angela to believe that Cletus actually has a crush on her, and in a very, very cringy scene that was very well executed, they almost kiss. It's cringy because Angela has a long-distance boyfriend, and Cletus is dating another girl on the cheerleading team. So it's just bad vibes all around. At a parade, it's then revealed that Cletus is not the Chicken, and Pete goes into hiding because he doesn't want people to figure out that he's actually the mascot. His self-esteem is pretty low, and he feels like everyone would be disappointed once they found out that he's the mascot. During the final game, because of course there's always a final game, everyone's about to leave because they're sick of not being able to see the Chicken anymore, but then he shows up and reluctantly reveals who he is. Because of some subtle dialogue choices, Angela realizes that Pete is the Chicken before he reveals himself, and she shares that she really likes him. This is after she breaks up with her longtime boyfriend, by the way. And then the basketball team actually wins the final game, which was a huge upset. I feel like this movie is a subtle commentary on just the amount of basketball movies we've been getting in this series. Like, okay, here's another basketball movie, but this time it's about the mascot and not the actual team, and I really appreciated that. Again, Jason Dolly is just so charismatic and enjoyable to watch on screen. He's able to be the perfect DCOM protagonist. And you know what? Mitchell Musso was able to give off a pretty annoying and despicable performance as well. So I feel like they were able to keep Cletus consistently kind of an asshole, while still showing that he does care about Pete a certain way. Overall, I loved Hatching Pete. I cannot believe I've never seen this movie before. If it wasn't for this movie coming out in 2009, the dark period where I saw no DComs, then I already know I would have had a deep, deep love and nostalgia for it. I know this is going to shock everybody, but I've already said that 2009 was the dark period in time, so I don't feel that bad in explaining that I've literally never seen Princess Protection Program until right now. Which is shocking because Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato were some of my favorite actresses at the time, but yes, the year 2009 is just a black hole in my memory, so there you go. Princess Protection Program follows Princess Rosalinda. She is about to be crowned queen of her very, very small, I think, island nation of Costa Luna, when she is attacked at her coronation rehearsal by General Magnus Kane, a dictator from the neighboring country Costa Estrella who wants to take over Costa Luna. So Rosalinda is sent into hiding by Major Joe Mason, an agent of the Princess Protection Program, which is a secret organization that keeps princesses from around the world safe. Joe Mason is the father of Carter Mason. They live in Lake Monroe, Louisiana, where they work at a tackle and bait shop together. Rosalinda is now Rosie and is sent to live with them in Louisiana to keep a low profile, and they explain that she's Carter's cousin from Iowa. Carter is very icy towards Rosie because she believes that she's a stuck-up snob princess. And she kind of is, because she's grown up with, maids and servants to do everything for her while she tries to lead a sovereign country. A lot of this movie is trying to provide commentary on, breaking stereotypes of what a quote-unquote princess is, which is really weird because, yes, it is a monarchy. As far as I'm aware, Costa Luna is not the royal family where they just do nothing but look glamorous all day. It really seems like the stereotypes that they're trying to, provide commentary on is, the Disney princess branding that propped up around a decade before this movie came out. I actually have a whole video where I talk about the Cinderella story movies, one of which does star Selena Gomez, that'll hopefully be coming out immediately after this video comes out. So if y'all are interested, feel free to subscribe. But anyways, Rosie has to learn a whole bunch of different things about being American, like eating burgers and stuff, while some popular mean girls are trying to bring her down a peg because they're afraid that she's going to win homecoming queen. Meanwhile, General Kane is trying to find out where Rosie is so he can capture her. Eventually, at the homecoming dance, he is able to locate her, but it's actually Carter in disguise. But the good thing is that her father was already trailing all of this, and they end up catching General Kane, and Rosie is able to be crowned queen. Seeing the bonding between these two characters was really sweet and fun to watch. Plus, we got my boy Nicholas Braun in here again. Between the role he played of a nerdy filmmaker in this movie and the one he played in Minutemen, I cannot believe that I had not thirsted after this boy as a young child. Plus his Eminem looking outfit and Sky High. It's all starting to make sense now. Anyways, I really liked Princess Protection Program. I thought it was really fun, so I'm probably not going to watch it again, but I did enjoy what I saw.
Doug's our hero, and I don't want to use any of my arcane power to rip his soul from his mortal form.
Yeah, good thing you're bad at magic.
Wow, Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato were on fire during this decade. They were in so many DCOMs around this time. Wizards of Waverly Place the movie is definitely one of the best DCOMs to come out. The storytelling and rich world building they're able to accomplish in this thing is so fun and engaging to watch. Wizards of Waverly Place the movie follows the Russos as they decide to go on a family vacation. Except this family vacation is going to be no magic. Originally, Alex was told that she didn't have to go on the vacation, but after destroying the subway cart in their restaurant, she's forced to go. Even though it's supposed to be no magic, Alex has stashed the family wizard book, and Justin has stashed the family wizard wand. They go on vacation to the Caribbean, and Alex accidentally wishes that her parents never met. So in this new world where the parents never met, Alex, Justin, and Max now are going to vanish from existence. And their father Jerry, who lost his powers because he married a mortal, now has magical powers and is an extremely reckless person. So it is an action-adventure for them to find this special rock called the Stone of Dreams, which will grant anybody one wish. So Alex and Justin go on this soul-crushing bonding experience where they try and find the rock, while Max keeps his parents occupied to try and make sure that they don't do anything stupid while they're gone. The character dynamics that they're able to build with Alex and Justin are so good, and it's a good example of how well the TV show was able to do that overall. Alex being the more brash and adventurous one, with Justin being the more rational and thoughtful one. They really butt heads a lot, and it's really nice to see them have to work under this extremely stressful situation. The dialogue writing is just so good, it's immaculate, really. At the very end, when the Stone of Dreams is stolen from them by the guy who introduced it to them, because he wants to turn his parrot girlfriend into a human again, they realize that the only way to reverse the spell is for one of them to be a full wizard, so they then have to compete in their family wizard competition. Sadly, Max isn't able to compete though because he's sucked into a vortex and, deleted from existence. I would have liked to see Max in the final battle. I mean, I have a whole 50-minute video where I talk about how Max has been shafted throughout the entire series, so check that out if you're interested. But anyways, of course Alex ends up winning. I mean, it probably was a pretty close battle because of how smart and, into magic Justin is. But then she ends up getting the Stone of Dreams because Teresa was able to get it from him. After his parrot girlfriend was turned human, she became a real asshole, so he gave the rock back to Teresa. And Alex is able to reverse everything. This movie was so fun, it was so engaging and interesting, and even if you've never seen the show before, I think it would still be a really interesting watch. So yeah, I really highly recommend you watch Wizards of Waverly Place the movie if you haven't yet. It's probably going to be in the top 10, although who knows, we still have 50 more movies to watch.
Can you please go out into the hall so I can get dressed?
Don't flatter yourself. I'm not looking.
Would y'all believe me if I said I've never seen Starstruck before this watch through? I somehow missed this as a kid, and since starting working on this video, I've avoided it like the plague because I did not want to get spoiled to give my most honest reaction in this review. So what did I think of Starstruck after all this time avoiding it? I really enjoyed it, even though it was a bit hollow around the edges. Starstruck follows Sterling Knight as Christopher Wilde, a huge pop star who seemingly has it all, and an average everyday girl that she runs into him by accident and is forced to follow around while he avoids paparazzi. Jessica Olsen and her family are visiting her grandmother in Hollywood from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and her sister, who is obsessed with Christopher Wilde, is trying to follow him around Hollywood, which is how Jessica ends up running into him. He slams a door in her face, and he has to take her to the hospital to make sure she doesn't have a concussion, but she ends up being fine. Afterwards, he keeps trying to avoid the paparazzi because he's supposed to be keeping a low profile, and they keep running into each other. I like how the dynamic of the two is just extremely fanfiction-y from the beginning. Plus, Sterling Knight is just such a good actor, and I love him in pretty much everything he does. I was expecting him to have a more snarky and mean, Chad Dylan Cooper-esque dynamic, but Jessica's the main one being rude who creates their enemies to lovers dynamic. Christopher was generally just a really sweet guy who wanted to take control over his life and not just do what his manager parents and PR girlfriend tell him to do. I wish they would have leaned more into the rom-com screwball antics of it all, but I did enjoy the sweet moments that they did get together as a couple. Overall, it was a really fun movie, but there were many cracks in the foundation that I could see being fixed if the movie maybe had a few more pass-throughs in the editing booth before being approved. It just feels like there's a lot of flaws that crash with the reality of the situation both of them are dealing with. I won't get into all of them here, but one of the biggest ones is the fact that they literally live in different states in the USA, and Christopher is about to go on a worldwide tour. So I don't know how their relationship is gonna, handle all of that. Plus, their third act break happens when Jessica is upset that he refuses to be seen publicly with her, but his whole reasoning for not wanting to go public with their relationship is because he wants to protect her from being a public person in the limelight. And she just doesn't seem to get this, or this just doesn't even come up in her arguments. She's just like, you're embarrassed to be seen with me. And I feel like the conversation they had could have been done a little bit better. I've seen enough celebrity biopics to know that this setup usually does not end happily. But man, I love a good enemies to lovers romance story, and this one, it somewhat hits the spot for me, even though there are some issues. On March 10th, Harriet the Spy Blog Wars was released. It is a Canadian made-for-TV movie as far as I'm aware, so while it aired on Disney Channel and the Disney Channel blog at the time called it a DCOM, it is not actually a DCOM, so I won't be reviewing it here. Which is sad because that means that Vanessa Morgan has only tangentially ever been a Disney Channel star. And with that, we've officially reviewed around another 40 movies. I've decided to cut it off here at Starstruck because, what a great movie to end on, first of all. But also because this is the last movie of the Ribbon era. And in the third part, we will be opening with the beginning of the Rounded Square era. Yeah, I know, quite an awkward name, but what are you gonna do? I thought it would be really weird if I split it off at 40 movies each time, and then I, talked about this whole brand new era and then reviewed 2 movies from it and then ended this part. So yeah, that's how we're gonna structure things. But I think that's going to work out pretty well because the beginning of the Rounded Square era means that it's the beginning of the more digital era of the Disney Channel, which means we're gonna get closer and closer to the end. And the digital era of the Disney Channel is also when the DCOM dies. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I've taken like a 3-month hiatus from recording anything on camera. The main reason, of course, is that I've just been busy editing this video. It has taken me so much longer to edit this part of the video than I ever thought it would. I was doing okay, and then I just had to take a break from working on stuff because I just had so much work to do with school and just other life things. The town I live in is like falling apart. I swear every day there's some sort of tragedy or atrocity happening. So if you see me drinking from water bottles at any point throughout this series, don't judge me. It's because I literally can't drink the tap water without getting poisoned, okay? My grandma just called me and I had to stop filming. That's also one of the reasons why this video's come out so much later is because I've been spending more time with family. The third least important reason is that I dyed my hair. If you couldn't tell already. Back in like January, I got sick of the green, and so I basically dyed my hair back to its natural hair color state, and like, ugh, blech, can't have that on camera. But then finally in February, I dyed my hair red, and it was just the wrong shade of red. It was way too bright, and it was okay, but I just got frustrated and was like, you know what, I'm just gonna live with this for a little bit. So finally, literally last night, I got the same bottle of hair dye that I had previously used, but I mixed in just like a little drop of black hair dye that I ordered online, and I finally got the color I've been wanting this whole time. So yeah, first time I've pretty much ever filmed with freshly dyed hair. How fun is that? So yes, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Like, genuinely, seeing my channel grow in subscribers and in viewership, even when I'm not posting, has just been truly insane, and truly, I'm honestly so grateful. I was really expecting for my channel to like die and fail in these past few months, but everyone's been, you know, watching the videos and subscribing, and I just really appreciate that so much. So I'm glad I put myself first. I'm glad that I'm doing things this way. The only problem is that, like, I'm like 6 months behind on my filming schedule that I've made for myself. I know I shouldn't care so much about the filming schedule because, you know, it's like, whatever happens, happens. But I don't know, I like things being orderly and neat and things coming out when I initially planned them to. So yeah, I feel like this next year of 2025 is gonna be me playing catch up in a sense, but as long as you guys are interested in watching my videos, then I really appreciate it. It's so funny because I promised an 800 subscriber special, like, not even that long ago, which is still so insane to me. And I never got to finish it because I decided to prioritize this video coming out as soon as possible. And so because of that, my 800 subscriber special is just like getting pushed even further and further along. And then I made a 1,000 subscriber special, which I hit like 2 days after I made the initial poll. But I've already reached 2,000 subscribers, and I'm really close to 3,000 subscribers. So I guess I should hold off on the subscriber goals until I actually fulfill them. So yeah, if you have any ideas for 3,000 subscribers or 4,000 subscribers, I would love to know. My 5 Sauce series is finally going to be wrapped up very soon. I'm going to be making a video about Good Luck Charlie, and yeah, the 800 subscriber special where I talk about every Cinderella story movie will all be coming out very soon. But I gotta finish part 3 first. So I'll see you guys when that comes out. Thank you again so much, so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.